right, so yeah, week one was obviously a tragedy. I think I was the sole possessor of the lowest points in the entire tournament at the time. I needed Renzo to carry. I think he did well, but not as well as he needed to carry my interesting performance. So going into week two, I think we had to come up with the plan.
The battle plan was that I would just one trick a comp. You 2020 a comp the entire week leading up to the tournament. Hopefully during the tournament, everybody like will respect that you play that comp every game and then you're uncontested for pretty much the entire time. So that didn't work. I was contested in 3 out of my 4 games, but we still ended up doing okay, so it was fine.
So we actually did run into a funny spot where Renzo was my pool, and I actually think he might have been the only person on my pool, and instead of making my board weaker, I'm pretty sure I leveled, played 3 Ironclad, put a spat against his full AD comp, and accidentally griefed him out of a placement.
Yeah, that was not great. I will admit. It was in game 1 of week 2. Someone else in our lobby was contesting me for Riven, and it came down to a spot where I had to make the choice whether or not I would slow roll with him or push levels. I opted to slow roll with my contester, and what ended up happening was neither of us hit the 3-star, and because of that, Goobums was actually able to get a first over the other player that was contesting me because he wasn't able to hit the 3-star because of the line that I took. The 4 teams that I would expect to see in the finals would probably be 8875, Ramblin' Robin, Sold Cat for Econ, and Aegon.gg.
Yeah, I disagree with my partner. So the 4 teams making it through. Okay, I think Ramblin' Robin is definitely making it through. And then I'm pretty confident actually in Milk and Becca. I want to see Bertosaurus' team go through because he actually picked like a guy who doesn't play TFT all that much. I'm pretty sure we're taking up the 4th spot. Because I'm pretty sure all we need to do is average a 2 between the 2 of us. Yeah, from last to first. Or honestly, from last to 4th, I'll take.
Who is making it through? That is the question on everybody's minds as we enter week 3 of the Giant Slayer series. That's right, I am DoA. With me is Admirable today, and it's going to be a great week at TFT. I think the meta's in a really fun place. We got a lot of fun teams today and tomorrow. I'm pretty hyped. How you feeling, Admirable?
I'm feeling fantastic about this one. You know, it's still quite a packed call for the top 4 as players come into the 3rd week here trying to accumulate points for their spot in the finals as well. There are teams that looking like they're very secured for this one, but you know, this is TFT and we're playing in a team event here today where you can have massive point differentials happen in just a single game. So still pretty much anything can happen from any spot that you're at.
Yeah, it was really neat hearing Goobums and Resner talk in that interview we just saw about sort of their strategy and things, how contesting another player was able to get Goobums the first in that one game. They are a team that needs to step it up, of course. They're not the highest in the standings, but we'll see what they can get accomplished. Before we get that far, before we get too lost in the sauce about teams and points and comps and all that, let's take a look at our format overall. We've got 16 teams, 32 players, 3 weeks of group competition. Now out of this, at the end of this week, at the end of tomorrow, Admirable, we'll know what 8 teams will make it to the finals, or rather 8 players, 4 teams will make it to the finals. It's going to be really tight. I think it's going to be, we're seeing some teams start to sort of break out. We're seeing 8875 look really good. Aegon.gg is looking good. Wide people happy, of course, but it all comes down to this week. We could still see a lot of movement among these teams, but if you look at this list right now, Admirable, who stands out? Who do you think is going to make it through?
Well, you know, the team that stands out to me, of course, if you've been following anything I've ever said about TFT, is Team Goob. You know, Goobums is my favorite player in the world right now. I'm probably going to be a fan of Goobums until the day I die. Wow. They do need to step it up this week, though. They have a tremendous amount of points to come through. And so when you take a look at this, you know, some of the strongest teams that are on here, like Aegon.gg with Spencer and Aegon on that, those are 2 players that I learned so much from watching them compete in events and watching their streams as well. 8875, this is a very strong team with, you know, Soju being the most popular player, I'd say, in TFT right now. Rat Owl, a huge one with Nubal and DQA on it. I mean, pretty much anywhere you look, you're going to find a team that, you know, you have something to talk about with it. And that to me is what makes this event so exciting, is that, you know, with all of these teams pretty tightly packed like this, you know, it's pretty crazy to see some of the differences that are coming out where the scores are concerned. But, you know, when you take a look at the teams for today, I have my eyes on 8875 right now. They've had 2 fantastic weeks, and I expect that to keep up here in week 3.
100%. I mean, you've got a good mix today of teams that are doing really well and then teams that really have to step it up, right? Gub is included in that list, I think, despite how, great Goobums is. We know he is a good player, Resner as well, but they definitely need to catch up in the points. Talking about that category of team right now, looking at 31, 32 Cuties, that's another team that's kind of towards the bottom of the barrel, right? In fact, they're second from the bottom. But that said, the points are close enough that a lot of these teams do have a chance still to get through, even though it is, maybe a little bit of a slimmer chance for some of them, but it could still change. Obviously, you see our teams for tomorrow as well, but let's look at what our lobbies are going to be, Lobby A, Lobby B. If you've watched the show in the past, generally what we do is alternate Lobbies A, Lobby B throughout our 4 games of the day. So you get a chance to see everybody if you've got a favorite. And if there's a player you want to watch in particular, a lot of them, if not all of them, are streaming right now as well. So you can go find that individual stream and check out if you want to see what they're doing turn to turn, which is something that I always love to do. If I'm not playing TFT Admirable, I usually have a stream on in the background.
Oh, yeah, I always have a stream on the background, even when I am playing. So at that point, I get to hear what other people are doing. It confuses me with my own notions, and then I get confused and I end up getting 8th place in a lot of these spots. But, kind of look at these lobbies. One of the things that's really interesting is that this is a team event, and your teammates are in the same lobby. So finding opportunities to coordinate with each other and benefit from that is a huge deal. And then, again, the point distribution that can happen. You can, for your team, get 18 points, or you can only get 3. So regardless of where you're at, you can have a 15-point differential take place in just a single game. And so that's something to have your eye on with this, is even though if you're at the very bottom with 65 points, you could in theory still come out on top of points when this ends. So keep your eye on how that's happening, because that's going to change from game to game.
Yep, and there is a bit of cash on the line to play for. That's right, $10,000 prize pool total, thanks to Riot Games and Ball Street rather, for helping us out with the prize pool. Love to see a little bit more for players to play for, help them kind of do this a little bit more full time. We also have a $50 per 1 game prize awarded to each team as well. And right now you can go to fantasytft.com, play a cool stock market game where you can see at the bottom of the screen right now a little bit of a ticker that shows the value of the players. One of the lobbies is looking at who's going to get first. The other one is who's going to get 8th. So you can play the one you want or both. If you're into multitasking, it's tough for me, but hey, if you can do it, more power to you, right? But it's fun, see a player doing well, buy some stock. See a player start to drop off a little bit, but you have a lot of their stock, sell it before it, plummets too much. But fun game to play. Here's the 2 questions we already mentioned already, Admirable. Who's going to get first? Who's going to get 8th? Both in Lobby A. I'm not going to ask you to make any predictions, but I'm not going to stop you either if you want to.
Well,
I'll throw that out there.
This is where I have a huge benefit for this, is because, again, I mentioned Goobums and how he's my favorite player.
Sure.
Goobums is very much in a situation where they play for the strongest position they can have. But I think that kind of the attitude coming into it, at least as far as what I've observed, is that it's very much a 1st or 8th kind of attitude. And so for me, this is a pretty easy pick on both sides. Where Goobums is very likely, I think, to get 1st place, but at the same time, because of that style of attitude, you're very likely to get 8th in that scenario as well. You're taking risks when you see that they can provide you a huge benefit from that. When players play that way, this is a hedge your bets sort of thing. I have 2 chances to win this lobby. I'm just never going to win both is all. So for me, it's Goobums on both sides.
I mean, you're not wrong. If you look at his results, week 1 it was 6-8, 3-8, so definitely more on the 8th side there. But week 2 was 1-2, 4-4. So not just 1st and 8th game to game, but 1st and 8th week to week as well. So what week is Goobums going to have this week? I think we're all waiting to see. But there's a lot of good players to check out. We're just kind of waiting for that first lobby right now to get started. That gives you guys a chance to get a little bit of early stock buying and all that kind of stuff. As far as the early stock, I gotta admit, I sold my Emily stocks. I sold my Resner stocks. I might end up regretting that, but we'll see. Time to get into game number 1 on board with GV8 from Team Liquid, one of the most prestigious esports organizations in North American esports for many, many years, starting off with StarCraft way back in the day, but now expanding into TV8 or TV8 into a TFT, which you love to see, and it'll be a sword start.
Yeah, and the sword start, I think is a very popular one right now and a very strong one as well. We've started to see Aphelios kind of creep back into the metagame as this has been happening, and swords is one of the most, iconed items I'd say for Aphelios in that regard. Having that Deathblade equipped on an Aphelios, while it has the right frontline setup and the right damage kind of packed behind that, it delivers some pretty impactful punches on that ultimate that Aphelios is going to be using there. But sword also just very involved with pretty much every single build that you can think of at the moment, and in a very potent way. They're very key items is what sword is building. So for GV8 here, I think this is a great start. You're kind of looking to see what these bubbles provide and what kind of units you can get out of this stuff. But I did want to talk about their team a little bit here. They came into this week at 77 points, which is on the bottom side of things. But this has been a very strong team, I'd say, for the two of these. It's Spicy Appies and it's GV8, and Spicy Appies has been very high on the ladder as we came into this week.
Yeah. I gotta say, too, Spicy Appies is one of my favorite streamers to watch lately because he does a very good job of explaining his mindset turn to turn as he sort of makes his decisions throughout the game. So I think in terms of streamers that I've learned a lot from, GV8, certainly, but Spicy Appies, quickly moving up my ranks in terms of streams I like to watch if they're on. But just to give you an idea, too, about what GV8's been playing throughout the tournament, obviously he tends to be a fairly flexible player, but lately it seems like he has leaned more towards the Abomination, Heimerdinger, Teemo sort of Revenant route if he can. He's played some other stuff, a couple games of Yasuo 3 that were top 4s in week 1, Nocturne 3, did an Akshan game as well, because if you hit, you hit, right? But he does tend to like the Abominations, and you can see already picking up a number of them.
Yeah, I mean, the Abominations are pretty strong early. The Callista becoming a Legionnaire and being equipped with a weapon, that can really help. Brain's a really solid unit. And also GVH just kind of had a preference for these, very powerful spikes that can happen in the middle of the game and very consistent positioning aspects that can have very deliberate changes with those little things. It's very much, I think, just the GV8 kind of attitude is just make your stuff more powerful right now because you can. And so when you look at the way that the teams have been, kind of going that way, a lot of like Brawler, Akshan sort of stuff, a lot of like the Heimerdinger as your main aspect sort of thing. There's plenty of units that can kind of hold the items as you work that way up. And you need those items pretty deliberately. So having these deliberate starts like this, it means you're not always going to have the strongest start to begin with, but what that means is you can start picking the best things off the carousel.
Yeah, very true. GV8, no fear of loss streaks there, and he does tend to like to slam items, so we'll have to see what he makes later. Meanwhile, over to one half of Team Gub, it is Resner deciding to go with the sword. He does have the belt already, so a number of things you can build with that. Zeke's obviously, we know those trap claws certainly rising in item stock lately. But when you look at this item start, what are you thinking, Admirable? I'm looking like maybe like a Runins here, save the sword for something else. Bloodthirster is a great option. I think he's kind of waiting to see what he hits in terms of champions to kind of help decide what items to make, but yeah, I feel like you got to make something.
I do feel like you're spot on with that as well. It's really tough, I think, to not be using items in the early stages of the game. And with these items right now, nothing's really fitting what's on the board at the moment. When you have a Vladimir and a Soraka, they're 1 star on top of this, but they're just really not that strong. So when we slam the Bloodthirster here, I think it's a very clear direction. I think it's a very smart direction as well. You just need a better unit to hold these things at the moment. Right now, Bloodthirster on this Vladimir, it's basically providing a shield.
Sure. And I mean, that's legit. In some of these early rounds, like that shield can make the difference between winning and losing or killing an extra unit sometimes. So it's not a bad idea. It's certainly better than letting your items just kind of languish on the bench, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I look at this. I look at the Gragas too. I look at the Soraka on the bench. And I'm thinking if Resner can find it, he's maybe thinking of going a Riven direction. Riven's been really strong lately. And if you can put it together, it can be a very stable comp to pilot through the mid game too, which preserving HP is ultra important, of course.
Oh, yeah. I definitely agree with you on that spot, too. It's just how powerful the Riven-Nidalee combination is, as well as kind of how easy it is to go that direction. You need a healthy economy. You need those units like in the middle of the game, again, to keep your health total afloat. And then you stay on level 7 and you roll until they're 3 star. Like, it's a very solid way to go through the game.
Sure.
So that's definitely, I think, one of the directions that they're looking at for this. You have the Recon to help support the Sentinel side of things, which is, I'd say one of the most important early and mid-game aspects of the composition as well. And on top of that, you have a Bloodthirster and you have an extra bow. Like, how much better does it really get in this situation, DoA?
I think it gets really good if you can hit the Riven. If you can't, it gets a little bit awkward, right? So, obviously these items can work fine. This could lead to like a Jax build if he finds a bunch of knights and things like that too. But, seems like Riven is the hope here. Whether that turns out to be the reality remains to be seen. Renewers are very strong, I think, especially early on. So I like the inclusion of those here. Just a good set of synergies. So you know, if he continues this loss streak, which it looks like he will, at least it's not going to be like a 4-0, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the ones you hate, is when you're just taking a billion early damage from these. You know, the early game is supposed to be where you're losing the least amount of life. So when you're losing to 4 units at a time, it starts to feel more like mid game losses, which can kind of lead your exit in the mid game as well. Definitely not the spot you want to be in that.
Like this is actually perfect. He's first pick on the carousel, but he still has 90 HP. Like, how you can't really ask for much more than that.
Very tough.
Decides to grab the gloves, so that could be building into a trap claw, could be building into a last whisper as well, depending on the other components.
Ooh. So a ribbon with a Deathblade?
Yeah, I mean, Deathblade is one of those items too that can translate to multiple carries. The only one it's not the greatest on is Akshan, because he already has the armor shred built into his kit, but. Lately I feel like I've been slamming more trap claws early on. That's something I've been seeing more in my games and more in the streams I've been watching. But it is going to be the Last Whisper. Okay. Yeah. Legit choice too.
I think pretty strong dedication here. When you build the Bloodthirster, you got to follow up somehow. So really, the only window this feels like it ever potentially closes is like the Ranger window, where they just don't operate that well with the Last Whispers.
Yeah.
There's a trap claw.
Yeah, you bet. The thing is, look, almost the same choices for Nubel, actually, and he ended up going for the Trap Claw. Didn't end up having the bow to use instead, but I think they're both good. I think Trap Claw is certainly better after the rework, since it provides those spell shields now. It's been a little while, but I think people are still kind of catching on to how strong this is going to be, especially if you look at something like a Syndra on the other side. If you can avoid getting tossed, that's usually big for the round.
Yeah, but the Syndra has to use its ability, and it doesn't get a pickup at all. That's just, that just completely devastates the entire purpose of this unit, which is to peel a unit. So kind of looking at this new battle board here, I feel pretty excited about how strong this potential is. You're super open. You get the payoff from the Trap Claw early on as you start to turn this around. I know that Nubal very much has, when I've watched Nubal, I've noticed that he tends to be very not focused on the idea of like win streak stuff, and more focused on the idea of just what can I do right now.
Yeah, and I think that's something you need to think about too. It's a lot of players will, especially when you look at like newer players, and this certainly included me, back in the day, and you still fall into the trap every once in a while where you're thinking about your final comp, you're thinking about the late game, and you end up hemorrhaging a lot of HP in like the mid game and the late early game because you're not thinking about your board right now, right? And that makes me think of Yoda back in what? I think it was Jedi, or oh man, I need to hand in my Star Wars nerd card maybe. I can't remember which movie it's from, where it's like, oh, you're always thinking about the future, never your mind on where you are, what you're doing, So you got to think about the present too. And think
I was hoping I'd get the DoA impression of Yoda there. I was hoping for the most stern impression attempt that I could possibly imagine here. As we're just watching this Olaf hack away at this board, like the Olaf's playing Hades here or something. My gosh.
Olaf 2 of the Bloodthirster, it's gonna probably get you some wins in the early game. I was looking at that free Udyr 2 in the shop too. I'm like, Udyr 3, but nah, there's not a lot of boards that are gonna want an Udyr 3 at the moment. So that's easy to pass on.
Yeah, Nubal, when you take a look at what Nubal has been playing in the past couple of weeks here too, nothing is really consistent or deliberate, it looks like. Nubal has very much been a player that I would say is like probably maximum flexible in terms of what I've seen them play. And I'm kind of curious if, that has been at all impacting like tournament performance stuff where, a lot of tournaments performance stuff, it's very deliberate metagame can have a huge impact because the players are researching you. And so when they know that you're going to go a certain comp, a lot of times they just don't want to contest you on that sort of aspect. And Nubal's very much just been open and kind of doing, whatever comes in at certain aspects. We're looking at Six Sentinel, Yasuo 3, Heimer with supported by legendaries, 3 different Jax builds that cropped up in the first 2 weeks. Like there's so much crazy stuff that's been happening with Nubal's side. I'm kind of curious to see where they really end up landing with this Bloodthirster.
Yeah, we'll see. His teammate DQA, I've got a lot of questions about as we swap over to Kyun's view, but I'm going to talk about DQA for a second first. His teammate DQA has relied on Tristana 3 a lot in the first 2 weeks of the tournament. I don't think that's a very reliable comp anymore, so there's going to need to be a pivot there. I'm sure DQA can make it, but I'm curious to see what he's going to replace those boards with. But checking out Kyun, got the Draconic rolling early. Brawler Nightbringer, pretty standard stuff for the Draconic, and you're not going to be winning a lot of rounds. You can see he's on a 7-round loss streak now, but you are going to be able to gain that economy. You're going to be able to get some 2 stars rolling maybe later on, but mostly you're kind of looking to get to that late game where you add in the Heimerdinger, you add in the Revenants, and try to make that work.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about this. I've watched a lot of Kyun recently, and the sell of this Zyra I think is a pretty stern, idea of where this perhaps could be heading. But that the Zyra was sold in this spot. So this Draconic thing not intended to be kept. And when you kind of look at this Yasuo, it's got the Runins, plus it's got the Jeweled Gauntlet. I think that's very much the idea of where this composition wants to head. And for Kiyun right now, the thing that concerns me is the life total aspect, right? You're sitting at 60 when you're at 3-2. It feels very uncomfortable for me personally. For Kiyun, though, this feels like a pretty common spot, actually, is deliberately focusing on your economy and sacrificing health, and then having huge momentum swings to be able to come back from that. So all of these losses I'm seeing from Kiyun, these feel like very normal things that I've seen, and again, it makes me feel uncomfortable, but I'm kind of curious how you think of this. I feel like this has just been such a very key facet of how Kiyun plays the game. Build up your economy and worry about the life total thing later.
Yeah, I think that works in a lot of cases as we swap over to Kiyun's teammate, Emily Wang. But if you're going to go a Yasuo angle out of taking a big loss streak early, I think you're running a pretty high amount of risk in that when you do, your roll downs at 7 or your slow rolls at 7, if you just don't hit, you don't have a lot of buffer to make a pivot, right? So yeah. I think he might struggle a little bit, but then again, he could just hit all the Yasuos and do really well too. So that'll be something we'll have to check in with later. Looks like for now, it's Assassins for Emily Wang. And, that could develop into a number of different things. Those items are not like the greatest Nocturne items ever. So I feel like there's going to be a pivot in the future at some point. But for now, 2 Assassins and those items on Nocturne is going to at least kill a couple of units, even if it's not going to really be reliable for win streaking. Yeah, and Emily also ran into an Ivern during this stint here in stage 3 as well. So having a pretty big aspect of this. You're getting a lot more kills out of a 1-star Nocturne, I think, than you're used to getting to. And a win here crops up as well. The Last Whisper, I think, is probably the most important item on the Nocturne, just so you can shred some armor and deal more damage. And with that Revenant buff in there, that's just enough extra that Emily Wang's able to pick up a win in that spot instead. And that's got to be a good feeling when you have a board that's I'd say missing some perhaps key 2-stars that you would love to have. Early Revenant is something that I see get overlooked a lot, because the units aren't that individually strong and all that, but just having something come back, just getting that free little Guardian Angel effect can be the difference maker in a lot of these rounds when you're still in stage 3 and rounds go a little bit longer, things are a little bit early, the damage is a little bit less across the board. So it's good to include when you can. Now, this is big for Kiyun. He finds another bow, he gets the RFC. So in terms of traditional good Yasuo items, this is it. Jeweled Gauntlet has started to fall off a little bit in Yasuo items, but it's still okay. So I think this is the item. This is an item set, I should say, that you can try to reroll Yasuo with. He finds 4 Nightbringer, so now things are starting to turn around a little bit. Getting a couple upgrades here and there, but you really need that Yasuo too. And it's kind of like I mentioned earlier, where now you're just kind of hoping you hit if you're Kiyun. You're hoping you find that Yasuo 2 and then can eventually move into the Yasuo 3. Yeah, and you're spot on with that. And the thing I want to point out really about this whole thing, though, is look at that tome that's still sitting on the bench. Yeah. When does Kiyun use this? I keep seeing this when I'm watching the high-end players play on the ladder and trying their hardest to absolutely gain a couple more points. I feel like I have never quite understood how this tome is being held and why it's being held, but it always feels like it makes sense once I see it happen. So I'm very curious where Kiyun ends up relinquishing this tome and trying to take advantage of the emblem that's going to be found off of this right now. This is a huge deal, I'd say, in the coming turns. I'm not 100% sure on this, so correct me if I'm wrong, but the tomes work where you get 2 of them that relate to the traits on your board and then 2 random ones. Is that correct? I'd heard that somewhere, and I think that's the case, but honestly I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me on that. But let's talk about these Radiant items. So anyway, that's why you might want to wait if you want to end up putting in something like Ironclad or Mystic later on, based on what you have on your board. So so we might, since it's just a Yasuo 1, maybe we're gonna see a swap here. All right, what? So he doesn't end up holding the tome for that long after all, but only 37 HP. Might as well. It's a pretty weak tome that ended up getting hit there. I'm curious how much the Legionnaire influences your build at this point now, because you can get to 4 Legionnaire from this aspect. Right. So this is kind of crucial. I am a little bit curious about the RFC as well. The RFC is extremely powerful. The Radiant one is so strong on Yasuo at this point. I'm just kind of curious how you get this, unless you're sacrificing a Yasuo or unless you have some sort of potential change
that's in mind when it comes to this. Now, with 4 Nightbringer and 4 Legionnaire, you're still very powerful at 3-6. So, I think it's going to be a bit of time before Keon loses some rounds here. But these items are looking a little bit tougher. You're just going to have an RFC floating around.
And not having a Yasuo too either is kind of painful. But I think what you can do is you can kind of navigate that into multiple carries, right? If he hits a Jax and puts those items onto a Jax, suddenly you've got the Radiant RFC Legionnaire Jax, which is going to be pretty crazy as a sort of secondary carry that you can itemize, where that Yasuo's already got good stuff. So that's a situation where you don't even need a 3-star Yasuo. You just go 2-star. You try to get to 8 quicker and start to add in some of those late game units. So maybe that'll be the plan. We'll wait and see. We're going to take a look at Spicy Appies right now. This is GV8's teammate on People Riot. And yeah, got a decent set of items himself. Is he considering the Varus reroll?
So I think that with the upgrade here, when you kind of go to 7 and start rolling, I feel like the idea is I don't have enough Varus right now. It's really difficult to follow through on the reroll aspect, and it's just because there's so few Zaruses, as well as kind of looking at the items. These kind of look more like the bulldozer items from when Pantheon was still in the game. The way that I'm kind of looking at this is exactly what's happened here. You're swapping over to the Sentinel side of things. You're going with 4 Knights, and I believe this is another placeholder for a future intent. Now, my question about this is how strong is actually Lucian in this spot? And I would say that with these items, I am a little bit more interested in this. I haven't seen a Lucian quite built this way that I've paid close attention to, but look at how hard that Lucian is hitting this board. My goodness, that is a lot of damage.
Yeah, the Radiant Jeweled Gauntlet is can be really good for Yasuo, or not Yasuo, for Lucian, right? Because they changed it. They changed the way his ultimate worked a little bit, so you're going to be able to capitalize, I think, on that magic damage a little bit more now. So we'll see. I'm not a huge fan of Lucian just in general at the moment, but I think if you're gonna play him, this is probably gonna be one of the stronger ways to do that during the mid game.
Yeah, I'm curious where this ends up panning out. This to me, when I start thinking about these items and how they fit, this is very likely, I think, to be like a Lucian final spot. Like, who else holds a Jeweled Gauntlet, Infinity Edge, Runons? Like, you have a sword now, so like maybe you could find a Shojin and justify something else, but I'm just having like a tough time in my head visualizing who would carry these items.
Yeah. I mean, the nice thing is that a lot of the carries are fairly flexible in terms of utilizing items right now. You can see him trying to decide, all right, can I avoid the Vel'Koz? Can I avoid the Nocturne? Looks like he does avoid the Nocturne. Good choice there. Discerns that was the slightly more likely one to be hit, maybe. Or, sometimes you're honestly rolling dice where it's like, I know I could hit these 2 boards. Left is bad, right is good. I'm just going to make a choice, But this one works out.
Yeah, this is delivering a lot of damage. I'm kind of impressed by how this build is functioning at the moment too. We're still early in stage 4, but like it's been a while since. Oh, yeah. Well, that turns everything around. That's the Lucian problem right there. Is he kind of dashes all over the place.
Yeah, sometimes he jumps right into the loving embrace of a Nocturne, right? And I mean, it was just a Lucian 1, right? So I think that was doomed. That round was doomed to be a loss either way. What's it gonna be? All right.
No, Ironclad looking kind of nice, but there again, the builds are kind of split. A lot of AD stuff that's going on here, so the Ironclad looks super appealing, I would say.
Yeah, I think if you're in this situation too, you can, this kind of eases the burden of positioning a little bit too, right? Where you can, you can plan around the AP boards a little bit more because you're going to be resilient against the AD boards, and there you go. So he manages to dodge the Vel'Koz here. And a lot of times Lucian will fire right back at that Vel'Koz too when he goes off. So this might work out.
Yeah, this is looking like a really nice spot. Also, like the Thresh avoiding this is going to hook that Trap Claw away. And so now it's really dependent on whether or not the center of this board can live. That Redemption is such a huge factor with the 4 Knights. That is just massively cutting into the amount of damage that Vel'Koz is able to deal. But you notice Lucian cranks up a little bit here. And so here's the Vel'Koz. It's a 1v1 now, and the Lucian not able to deliver the damage. And Spicy Appies is taking some hits here, down to 30. They're currently holding the last place in the lobby as we head into the mid-stage 4 carousel.
Yeah, I just haven't been a huge fan of how the Lucian sort of functions in a lot of fights lately in the game. Like you said, he kind of dashes into things a lot. It seems like people are getting better at building boards that are more resilient to it or can kind of capitalize on it. So
this is kind of interesting. So now, like, opportunity for Bloodthirster gets picked up, and you do have a Reforge. And so it's a pretty big gamble, I would say, to, like, Radiant Reforge. But with what I'm looking at right now, having a Bloodthirster option feels like it changes a lot of potential that's available in some of these spots. I am really curious to see how Spicy Appies is going to take this one, because they're pretty calmly leveling up. They just ticked a couple of spends into the leveling option of this. That's very unusual, and I am really curious to see how this pans out. At 30 health, I am extremely nervous for this, and the fact that Spicy Appies looks so calm and is focusing on positioning and not the gold or board improvement aspect at all, it gives me a lot of concern.
Well, it seems like one of those situations where, maybe you're looking to try to get a decent level 8 roll down so you can 2-star something, find some sort of carry to rely on. Yeah, this Lucian, I don't know if this Lucian is it right now. That's a Draven too on the other side as well. Yeah. So he is just running into a lot of very strong boards, and this is going to be a big loss. Oh,
ooh,
15 HP. 15. Half his life is gone after that. All right, now you send it. Now you just go for it. You've got, you're pretty dead if you lose again. So I feel like you either take a big risk and wait until 5-1, or you just send it. We'll keep an eye on that. Yeah, he does go to level 8. He is leveling right now, as we can see on the sidebar. We'll take a look at DQA, as he does a little bit of scouting here as well. I'm kind of watching Spicy Appy's little bubble on the right side to see if the 2 stars anything significant. Yeah.
Just staring at it, we're like, where's the 2 stars?
Yeah.
Where are they? Oh gosh, that's a bad sign for Spicy Appies there. Maybe just getting a good synergy improvement in that aspect. DQA, very, very always focused on position, it feels like, when I watch DQA's side of things. And right now, sitting on the 6 redeemed. This feels like a very unusual spot to be in. But when you have 2 Jewel Gauntlets and a Shojin, it feels like right now this is a great spot to be.
Yeah, I mean, these 2 players, Rat Owl, are looking pretgoing in the lobby overall. That said, he does run into a board that ends up taking him out pretty quick. That Viego making a big difference there, and that's going to be a decent hit to his HP as well. But honestly, Admirable, this lobby from 3rd place on down is really close right now. Oh, Spicy Appies loses another round, but doesn't lose a lot of HP. It was a close loss, but he might be going 8th.
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible. When you lose 5 and you're at 15, it feels a lot worse than if you lose 5 and you're at 20. I would say, though. So, down to 1 hit on Spicy Appy side effectively. And when you're looking at DQA side here, this what does this actually provide for you? So right now, Spellweaver is an option. We're looking at Knight being an option. We're looking at Forgotten and Brawler being options as well. For Rat Owl, this is kind of, I'm sorry, for DQA here on Team Rat Owl, goes with the Spellweaver Spatula, and I think that's probably the best one here, because Vel'Koz is very clearly going to be holding the fort for quite a bit, and you have a Fiddlesticks sitting on your bench as well. So Fiddlesticks ends up being the one that kind of comes into place in one of these holder spots. That's a great unit, I think, to be holding that. There's a lot of strong finds here as well from DQA's side, but it's pretty tough to transition out of 6 redeemed and try to improve this, just to hold the board a little bit with a couple of Revenants at this point. So I think right now it's just put a powerful unit in play. It's going to change up the who's holding the Trap Claw as well here. So I think that's really nice. And then just going to go with the Fiddle for now to get the Mystic aspect of things, but up against a 3-star Yasuo. But look at where that Vel'Koz is lined up. DoA, this is going to be a huge fight.
Yeah, it should be. The Vel'Koz does get a good angle on it, but doesn't do quite as much damage as I think he was hoping. I don't think that cast is going to get off again. Yeah, that's a good amount of damage onto DQA. So now it all depends on how that Fiddlesticks does, right? Spellweaver Fiddlesticks is something that's been kind of creeping up in popularity a little bit. I think after the patch on Wednesday, it might see a little bit more play, because Spellweaver is kind of getting those buffs too. So that Spatula item is going to be just more valuable in general. But a lot of item components on the bench right now too. I wonder if you do like a Morello's on the Fiddle as well, but we'll have to wait and see. Back on board with Emily Wang. We saw her teammate did hit his Yasuo 3, so that's a good sign. Emily with 6 Sentinel. Lucian 2. If you're going to run the Lucian, this is probably what you want to do. Nice hit on the Ivern 2 as well. So 15 HP, but this doesn't look like the worst board ever, so I feel like there should be something she could beat in the lobby with this.
I mean, this is a super packed lobby as well. Like, if you're not GV8 or Nubal right now, you're kind of worried about your spot, I would say. Goobums, I'd say, like, maybe a little bit comfortable, because sometimes it's going to take 3 hits to knock them out of the lobby at this point. For GV8, like this has been just a fantastic lobby. If you're one of these bottom spots, though, you are thinking to yourself, I think very likely, I could be 8th here. And so you're having to play the game as aggressively as you can to try to make it through here. And you're seeing the power of what the 6 Sentinel can provide when everyone's having to spend that gold very aggressively to fight through. The 6 Sentinel does not cap out super well against what, the peak lobby power is really capable of. But again, when everyone's having to spend and you get to spots like this, the 6 Sentinel can feel so strong. However, it's against a Jax and barely getting through that one. DQA falls to 1. Renzer falls to 8. Spicy Appies picks up a win in that last lobby, and that's a huge boost, I think, of confidence for how this team is going to feel. Not only did Emily win that last fight, but also found a 2-star Galio in this position.
Yeah. I'm looking at this board now, and I'm thinking about it in terms already of how Sentinels are going to change after the patch on Wednesday. Did you look at those patch notes yet?
I've taken a glance at them because I was kind of curious where things were going. I'm glad that Sentinels is getting kind of a pickup because it does feel like it's a little bit, underwhelming at the moment.
I think it'll be cool, and as we see Emily go up against GV8. Oh, and it's a Kale board. Those are good Kale items, though. I like this, and the Teemo as well to slow down the attacks coming in from the other side. If you're gonna do Kale, this is a good way to do Kale.
Yeah, the A-bomb, I'm curious if the A-bomb thing is like a temporary spot or if that's going to be the spot to be. Right now, Lucian, great angle and knocks out the Kale in this spot. Kale's a meme, says DoA after seeing one single fight. And science knows that correlation is causation. We have a 100% example of the Kale 2 not working at the moment.
I mean, you talk about things that might get better on patch day, on Wednesday with 11.17. Like, Kale's going to be one of those theoretically. So, for now, I think Kale's a little bit of a meme in the current game. You can put together powerful builds with her, but I think it's tough. Either way, like, obviously it's worked for GVA this game, so his build is definitely not a meme in this particular lobby. But not a big fan of Kale until 11.17 overall.
Renzer and Spicy Appies finishing in 8th and 7th, respectively. This has been, again, a really tough one to get through in terms of how these lobbies are going for Econ right now. Very much the Abomination side of support. I'm sorry, the Revenant side of supporting where this Yasuo goes. And I'm curious how much of this was influenced by the Legionnaire spatula that was found. Just wanting to take advantage of that to some degree. And being on level 8 here with 3 Revenants and 2 Nightbringer and a Yasuo 3-star, like this is a pretty unusual spot, I'd say, to be in if you're going for a 3-star Yasuo.
Yeah. It's served him well, though. You can see he did end up actually transferring that Radiant to RFC over as well, which I think is really good. There's the attack slow coming in from the Teemo. Kale, though, taking so much damage. Oh, but doing just enough to kill the Yasuo. And it looks like that's going to be enough to win the round for GV8, too.
A big win for GV8 here as well. Having lost to the 6 Sentinel board, I would start to be questioning, be like, did I do the right thing here? Like, 6 Sentinels is a pretty, it's not a super strong thing. It's not weak, but it's not nearly one of the strongest things that can happen. And in this lobby, it felt like everyone kind of went for these peak aggression points at some point here, and that's why this lobby is so packed. No one's really having this huge scaling opportunity, really, except what feels like GV8. For Kiyun, this is pretty packed in terms of their power level. For GV8, there's still, I think, a number of board improvements that can be made. For everyone else, they are fighting for each individual position that they can possibly find at this point. As we jump over to Noob Owl's side, and this is 6 Forgotten that is in play right now, DoA.
This build is disgusting, man. Look at this. 6 Forgotten Teemo. If you have small children in the room, please escort them out, because this board is not safe for younger audiences. This seems very strong. Like, he's only got 7 HP, but if you just look at this, it should be just a ton of damage from the Teemo. You've got the double redemption, including the Radiant redemption on the Aurelia. Like, I'm very interested to see what this board is going to end up placing. This is very unique. You don't see a lot of 6 Forgotten right now in the meta.
You really don't. Like, I actually had a 6 Forgotten game very recently as well. It looked nothing like this board. It fell into place nothing like this board, and it looks like this is going to be the last we see of it.
Never mind,
it's a meme. The KO build wipes this out as Noob Owl, DQA, and look at this lobby. Oh my gosh, DoA, how can you be this close?
3 players sub 5 HP. DQA has had 1 HP in a dream for so many rounds now. Noob Owl out in 6th. Spicy Appies and Resner were the ones to drop first. And, a blue buff. That could just get tossed in a couple places. If you put it on the Gwen, it's going to be basically infinite casting. She's going to be casting very quickly. Otherwise, Teemo can benefit from that too if you want to get a little bit more survivability via the attack speed slow. So I think you got a couple different options here.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting blue buff placement. Blue buff not a super popular or super powerful item, I'd say at this point. Could definitely provide a lot of help. Just kind of curious where this goes. I think if this Gwen hits 2-star, that definitely influences some of this decision, I'd say.
I'm feeling the Gwen a little bit here. I think there's definite benefits to putting it on the Teemo as well, just to get that pretty much immediate. I think it might be instant cast if you put on the Teemo right now. But I just love blue buff on Gwen. I mean, you've got Frozen Heart, you've got the Warmog. She's going to be living a long time. She's going to be slowing a lot of attacks. She's going to be jumping all over.
Big swap.
I'm totally fine with it being on the Teemo. Okay, yeah. Like I said, instant cast, very legit, but I think the Gwen was tempting too.
Yeah, wipes out the shield in the back line as well, and then Teemo hits the same place again, and that's going to wipe out DQA. Holy smokes, that Teemo straight up won the fight by itself.
Yeah, dude, he's got like the sniper Teemo online, so that blue buff right where it needed to be. GV8 was 61 HP. He's just crushing this lobby right now. 2 remain. Goobums takes 4th, but we see Emily, who's changed her name to 13 Yamcha based on the the comparison to her team to Yamcha and Krillin instead of Goku and Vegeta as a duo. But hey, right now, this is one of those rare fights where Yamcha's out there taking names.
Yeah, and so, with GV8 here, honestly, this kind of like is really pretty much spot on as well with the point that you made and that I emphasized as well for GV8. Right as the lobby began, which is he just always is going for the powerful stuff. Like it seems like what he always has in mind is like, what can I do right now to make my board powerful? And then how can I make it the most powerful from the position I landed in? And when you land on 2 Death Blades and a Rage Blade, my instinct is just something that attacks a lot. And Kale is pretty much the unit that attacks the most.
Kill?
That is a double kill as well. GV8 built a powerful lineup here. Never saw the radiant benefit of dropping to 40 health and just smashes the lobby with 60 health remaining at that point. Like, that's so rare that somebody wins a lobby with that much of a difference between the second and first.
It's like I was saying all along, Admirable. Kale, best build in the meta at the moment. Definitely not a meme. Easily just the strongest S tier build anyone could play. Yeah, clearly.
That's what I recall hearing as well.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly what I said, if I remember right. Yeah. The GV8 crushing that lobby. Unfortunately for his team, Spicy Appies with not the greatest placement, so the points are mitigated a little bit there. But if I recall correctly, it was actually Kiyun and Emily Wang that placed pretty highly as a duo in that lobby. We'll have to check it out. We'll look at those scores in a moment. But like we talked about earlier, it's all about those teams near the bottom today and tomorrow trying to make their way back up the standings, get a chance, however slim, to try to make it to the final lobby, be one of those top 4 teams for next week.
Yeah, and as each one of these games closes, that position gets more and more tense as well. If you had poor performances just in this first game alone, and you're sitting in that bottom spot, it's looking a lot tougher. It's time to start taking some big risks as you head into the next 3 games, because it's all about making it to that top 4 spot.
Yep, that's right. So we'll see what the breakdown ended up being. We'll see who won the Lobby B as well, and check out where the points are at in just a moment as those all get compiled. Sometimes like a lobby ends soon enough that we can jump over to the other one and look at it. Looks like things are ending about the same time here, so it's just a matter of things being tabulated. But that was a kind of a wild game to start things off with already, Admirable, wasn't it? I mean, not to, set aside the Kale winning the lobby for a second, we saw a lot of interesting pivots. We saw a lot more Lucian than I expected to see in one lobby. And we saw that 6 Forgotten build too, which is not again something you see very often, but you can place okay with it apparently if you get it online.
Yeah, I'd say that this was like one of those lobbies I think that's kind of demonstrating one of my favorite things about this particular set on the 5-5 in general is that there's so much variation that occurs, and it can really affect an entire lobby, not just like the one player that's involved with it. The maximum strength on builds right now is very, very high. And when you look at like the maximum strength that takes place from lobby to lobby, it's a very large difference from that very top spot into like I'd say like midway through. Just from the like the top to the midway is a huge variation, and I feel like we saw the huge variation of like pretty much right in the middle with that lobby. It's a Kale that's holding 2 Death Blades and a Rage Blade. We saw 6 Forgotten in this lobby, as you mentioned. We saw a Yasuo 3 that's being supported with 4 Legionnaire and Revenants instead of a bunch of Nightbringer stuff to boost that amount of damage that Yasuo is dealing. Stuff was all over the place, and it's so much influenced by the emblems that you find, the items that you find. and how strong the units are as you find them. And taking a look at who won that lobby again with GV8 and the Kale loaded up with 2 Deathblades, it certainly is not the unit I would have envisioned if 2 Deathblades is what you told me won.
Yeah, you know, I wasn't joking when I said Kale was not exactly the strongest thing in the meta right now, but if you hit that early, I think the difference is if you hit that early Kale too, and you do have units to support it, and you do have enough of a front line to give her time to get online, you can do well with it. And that is the board that GVA put together. You can see Spencer actually taking first in lobby lobby letter B there as well. Spencer taking first. Pokygom manages to get second as well. And I believe, let me just double check here. Yeah, Pokygom and Rue on the same team on the Neanderthals. So their team taking second and third. So a really nice boost in points for them in lobby B.
Yeah, a huge one as well. You take a look at, Spencer getting first place in this one as well, with Aegon getting 8th place in that one. Very much a very average finish afterwards, but that's the kind of finish that you're at least looking for. If someone finishes 8th and you told them, hey, you know what, you finished with points for 4.5 placement, that's a fist pump at that point. I mean, they came into this week, and now after this game, they're sitting at 97 points for the week, which I believe is putting them in about 3rd position for where points are total across the board. Maybe 2nd position. It's just going to kind of depend. I haven't referenced everything here, but picking up that win, that is their 3rd lobby win that they have found over the course of these 3 weeks.
Yep, that's right. $50 per first between the 2 players. So that's 150 total for them so far in the tournament. One of the things I noticed from that last one, Admirable, was that we actually had 8875 taken 5th and 6th in that lobby as well. So leaving a little bit of room for people to creep up the points. You can see 8875, despite a less than stellar finish in their first game of the day, have been the first team to break 100 points in the tournament. That's a significant milestone, but a lot of teams pretty close on their heels.
Oh yeah, and this is like for 8875 here, DoA. I'd say that the number one aspect for them is to just not have bottomed out finishes. And kind of noting the way that I've seen Soju play, really those bottom out finishes can definitely occur. Very much has that same kind of play style where it's like you're trying to finish very high, and sometimes that fails and you finish very low. But Precedent has been absolutely just a major hauling of their performance as well to keep this team up here. When both of these players are finishing well, it's no surprise to see them crack that 100-point threshold first.
Yep, for sure. See other teams trying to creep up there as well. Other teams like Bronzosaurus, which I don't believe they play today, are probably one of the teams that's almost guaranteed to not make it through. I haven't done the math. I'm not going to do the math because I'm terrible at math, Admirable. But I think they're pretty close to mathematically eliminated unless there's some sort of miracle scenario that I'm not thinking about. But either way, the race is starting to tighten up in the top 8. And of course, half the teams we won't see today. We'll see them tomorrow. So we won't have the full picture until after tomorrow's games. But I'm sure it's going to be pretty close. It's going to be a photo finish either way.
Oh yeah, it's been very close every single time. I've been casting on the second day in the previous 2 weeks, and every time I come into it, I'm like, why are these teams so far behind? I'm like, oh right, the other players just played yesterday.
Haven't played yet, yeah.
So that's kind of one of the things that I'm really liking about this 2-day aspect of it as well, is that you're seeing where a team goes, and then it's like, can you catch that point as well? It's like a competition, but it's also like a comparison aspect. I'm getting just every benefit of a competition. Gosh, I just love this so much. It's something I feel like I always forget about when competitive stuff is happening, is that you started doing all this because it was fun. And then when you kind of get to these situations like this and there's these little variables, it makes everything so much more fun in comparison to that as well. So kind of just seeing how this pans out and how tight it gets, and seeing whether or not, taking a look at day 2 teams like Why People Happy sitting at 96 points going into tomorrow, Ramblin' Robin going in at 93. If they can have the same kinds of performances that 8875 and that Econ are having right now, that pretty much eliminates a lot of the chances that other players can have. And so this is one of those situations where if you're close in that, but you're not in that top 4 spot, at some point you're going to have to take a risk. And I'm just curious, when is that moment going to show up, and what's the risk going to be? I want to see if it succeeds.
And the other thing to think about is how do you translate that necessity of risk taking into a team scenario too? How do you plan for that? But we're going to go into lobby B for our second game of the day that we're going to check out. This is the lobby with Pokygom, Broccoli, Spencer, Soju, Rue Loves You, Raditz, Aegon, and Press Event. And check out what everyone puts together. On board with Spencer, our game 1 winner here in lobby B, and gets the bow start, which is, I feel like, oftentimes the most coveted start in the current meta.
I feel like bow is my preferred item for sure. I'm kind of curious
It's a lot
what
of
your
people's
preferred one is. You know, I like to slam Runons. I like to slam Last Whisper. 2 Kleds found off of this as well. I do know that Spencer is capable of rerolling, and that Kled is not a dismissal on reroll. It is a possible thing. You just need a lot of Kleds early before you dedicate to that. But I'm kind of curious, Doa, what are your top 3 items right now that you're looking for off the starting carousel?
Wow, there's another Kled. But my top 3 items, well, I think bow first. I actually really like belt for my second item. No, I take that back. It's glove and then belt probably, but it depends on how I'm feeling, I guess. I like belt because it gives you the opportunity to slam things like an early Zeke's, early Trap Claw, early Sunfire Cape is the best one early on, and then glove is just a very versatile item as well. So if I can't get the bow, I look for something else that can give me a lot of decent early game strength.
Love to hear that. Early game strength, I think, is a very underrated aspect of the game. Just, items that they're not necessarily the best later on, but by golly, they helped you get to that later on point.
Well, I mean, something like Sunfire is like a lot better all game long than it used to be, too.
Oh, yeah. Sunfire's looking great this meta. I'm looking at this bubble that was found here from Spencer as well. Finds a Lee Sin off the bubble. This feels like one of the more crucial units that you can find. It's one of the few units that actually just, a lot of times it makes it through to your final composition from the very start to the very end.
True. So sells for the pre-level, and so that's going to give him a chance. He finds another Lee Sin. Wow. All right.
Oh my
gosh. That's just going to be strong. What else can you say? 2 Lee Sins early on. They deal decent damage, and they give you that pretty massive attack speed slow. So I definitely don't think you need to slam anything yet. I think you wait and see what your armory is. But yeah, looking like a decent start for Spencer.
I could definitely see an item slam here, but I could see saving it as well. Like bow, rod, and glove is some very different item stuff that's going on. So if you're slamming the Last Whisper here, this rod is very much looking like a utility perspective at this point. Yeah. I don't mind slamming Last Whisper again. I think this is a very powerful item. Kled attacks very fast, so you're getting, I think, some pretty strong value out of this at the moment. Really, the only thing that this is doing is it's just kind of like cutting out a couple of options that require pretty heavy dedication, like a Yasuo comp. If you wanted to go Yasuo at this point, Last Whisper is not really doing anything in that composition. So that you really don't cut out too much, I would say, when you slam this Last Whisper, other than the fact that you're moving towards the AD tree, and it means that this rod is playing that utility aspect instead. And seeing a bow here to go with this as well as a glove, like you still have strong options here. Holy smokes.
I mean, I'm looking at that. I'm kind of thinking, all right, well, I've got Ginsu's Rageblade and Last Whisper. Like, maybe I'm playing Nocturne if I can find it. Otherwise, there's a lot of options, right? Oh, and he's going to go ahead and slam the Jeweled Gauntlet.
So this is something that I have been seeing quite a bit of with Last Whisper slam, is that Jeweled Gauntlet is certainly something that I've been seeing slammed with this as well. Sure. And the idea that I've been told around this, I haven't done the math on this to go with it. Again, you mentioned the terrible at math thing. I just call that caster math.
Yeah, I think most casters are afflicted with this ailment.
I've been seeing the Jeweled Gauntlet kind of like take an Infinity Edge position, and it yields like the same amount of damage. It's not quite the same. You don't have like the biggest peak potential. It doesn't have the same consistency, but it kind of functions the same way. You're critting and shredding armor, and your abilities can crit as well. So I feel like it's pretty close to about the same thing, and a good way to kill that rod if you're going the AD side.
True. See another Jewel Gauntlet already being slammed for Broccoli, as he's running a little bit of Hellions early with that Ziggs, trying to be the carry. Couple Callistas, so thinking maybe I'll find the bomb if I leave myself open to it. But Raditz, just a strong, powerful 3 characters right now. You've got Brawler going, you got New eating people, you've got Udyr 2, who can be a strong early carry, and I love this swap. I was saying this earlier in a game that we were playing and kind of talking about, where I think Skirmisher Sentinel is probably the strongest early game trait combination you can make right now. Obviously, like each lobby, you can have something stronger than it if they have a bunch of 2-stars and you don't. But just on traits alone, I think this is the strongest thing right now.
I mean, you're getting a double 3 on 4 units. Oh, yeah. My gosh, it's just so much to be getting. Phases against Rulevji with a double level on 2-3 as well. So this is a 4 versus 5 unit thing that happened here. I wanted to talk a little bit about Raditz's performances, because they've been I'd say pretty impressive throughout. In week 1 they had 7-4, 3-4 on their placements. In week 2, Raditz had 2-1-1-3 on their placements, and that is a massive week to be having. Like, it's an absurd number of points. And so kind of coming into this and you know, watching how Raditz is playing and kind of favoring the strong position now sort of aspect of it. Obviously, most players are going to favor that kind of position, but I think it helps give you an idea of you know, what's going to be happening for players that can have these huge hot streaks where they come up with a bunch of strong finishes in a row. They're constantly trying to seize that big opportunity that is presented in front of them. You know, there is risks involved with that, but you know, there's a lot of payoffs that are involved with that as well. So for Raditz here, you know, it's a very similar position to what Spencer was just in. You have a huge AD item, and then you have a rod and a chain afterwards. It's a utility faceted stuff afterwards. How do you kill this rod, and how do you make the most of it?
Well, we'll find out. You know, for Raditz, he had a monster week last week, and he had a very good week 1. And you've kind of got polar opposites on Sold Cat for Econ. You've got Raditz, who's only taken 1 bot 4 in all 8 games so far. And then you've got his teammate Broccoli, who unfortunately has only taken 1 top 4 in all 8 games so far. So, you know, as good as Raditz has been doing, his teammate unfortunately is holding him back a little bit in the points. So I think for them to have any hope to really move on, we're gonna have to see a much better performance from Raditz's teammate. We know Raditz is solid this tournament. We need Broccoli to step up.
Yeah, after game 1, they came into this with 94 points as the total of this. So still behind a team that has yet to play on day 2 after that first game. But yeah, you know, in a position where they just need strong performances in order to have a real chance here. You know, so selling your cat for Econ, maybe just not the best idea in the world.
I mean, it depends on the cat, right? If it's a very expensive cat, then yeah, maybe. I don't know. If you find a good home for it, you know, sell it to the right people.
Sells for 830 gold. What the?
This
is a game of TFT. How does it sell for that at all?
You know,
Nidalee doesn't win a fight. Oh my gosh! Nidalee didn't win a fight in stage 2. This has never happened before.
It's a first for everything, right? Maybe it's the items. I don't know. Broccoli update though. In game number 1, he did get 7th, so not a strong start for Broccoli either. And we'll have to keep an eye on that. We'll give you your Broccoli update. Meanwhile, press event on the team with Soju and 8875 Sentinel Assassin will be his beginning. It has some items you can definitely translate into a Nocturne play, but you definitely don't need to, as you can see. Swapping it over to 3 Sentinel, 3 Skirmisher. Again, we talked about how strong this is early on. He does have 2 Olaf 2s, which is going to give him some more sustain. And we'll see if he can maybe get a win before Krug's here.
You know what's better than 1 Olaf 2 in stage 2? It's 2 Olaf 2s. My gosh, Olaf 2 is hard enough to beat, especially if you got good items for it. Like this Olaf, it looks like it's going to lose this fight because of the Morello blue buff on the brand. The Morello blue buff on the brand from Pokkigam, that's a big difference in that one. But that is quite literally the reason that Precedent lost this fight, is that you don't get the same sustain from the Olafs that you normally get in this one. So kind of demonstrating, you know, that there are alternative aspects, you know, other than just the 3 Skirmisher, 3 Sentinel board, which is just kind of like a staple power, I'd say, of 5-5 right now. Just a very powerful thing. And so for Precedent here, the thing that I've been noticing is they're taking very careful attention to their Econ right now. Like they sold off everything on their bench. They got to exactly the gold marker of 20 gold. And now in this one, they're peeling this Olaf with the items down. If you don't get any gold here, you get to go to 30 gold. It's little attention to detail like this, I think, that's really set precedent aside from a lot of the players that we've been seeing over these previous 2 weeks. It's just been very close attention, very minor little details, but those minor little details add up to a momentous mark at a certain point.
Oh, well, there you go. Got 30 gold. Was able to make Econ just the last moment there. Now, Precedent has had a pretty good tournament so far. Only 2 bot 4s out of 8 games. He's tended to trend in the tournament anyway towards Riven, towards a little bit of Dawnbringer. You know, has played a little bit of Spellweaver, Vel'Koz, Abomination, all that kind of stuff. 2 games of Sentinel. So, you know, within those 3 sort of branches is where Precedent is kind of like to sit, with one Yasuo exception. But overall, like, just a strong player.
Looking at Broccoli's board here, you know, we were just talking about Soul Cat for Econ. 52 gold coming into 3-1. Wow. At the 72 life mark. This is, if you're playing like the I'm going to lose my rounds sort of strategy, this is pretty much like the mark that is like the high end of where you expect to be at. You lost your first 5 rounds. You ended at 72 health. You exceeded the 50 gold point, and your team really is just not that bad that's sitting on board. Like just a couple of improvements can really change this right now, but keeping up your loss streak's giving you a lot of extra gold, and you're not trading that much life for it. So I think Broccoli's setup here is pretty strong for where it's at. You're going to have great position for the next 2 carousels, and everything's looking like it's kind of panning out your way at the moment. So I'm curious to see if they're going to be rolling gold in this aspect, or if the plot is turbo to 7 and find the rest of this.
I feel like where Broccoli still seems to be looking for a little bit of a direction, and he hasn't already committed to like a 3-2 roll down, yeah, you are going to be looking at that 4-1 level 7 roll down to sort of find a direction to go. The items are pretty broad. There's no real strong carry on his team right now. The Ziggs is like okay, but at this stage in the game, it's not going to win you a lot of rounds. And, you know, like you said, he's been able to preserve his HP. Like, generally, if you're above 50 HP by Wolves, you're still in pretty good shape on average, right? So that's kind of where the target will be looking for, is find a way to stay above 50 HP through 4-1.
Yeah, and I think that one of the big benefits that you have of going a composition like this too, you know, you mentioned the 50 health mark, and I think it's a very important mark to mention, is because a lot of times when you continue this loss streak, you're not going to have 50 if you wait till Wolves to make that change. And so looking at this, it's grab the carousel, and on 3-5, you catapult yourself ahead to try to find units before players have really had strong access to them, and that's how you solidify your mark in the lobby, is on that 3-5, jump to 7, and, you know, very aggressively spend the rest of your gold to get to that point. We jump over to Soju's board now, and Soju just looking like they have a pretty strong board in general, sitting at the bottom 4 in terms of health where they're at. And just nothing really coming quite together here. The economy is okay. You have some pretty decent units, but you know, your key units that want to carry items, they're not leveled up just yet. So this is a pretty tough spot for Soju. I feel like at this stage, you can't afford to roll gold, and you're kind of at the mercy of what, you know, the lobbies or what the game's going to provide you for the next few rounds.
Yeah, this looks rough. Whenever I see a spatula and a glove right now, I definitely think Assassin Spat. I think it's one of the best spatula items in the game at the moment. And the items he has can theoretically go towards Nocturne a little bit, but where it looks like Econ might be thinking that direction anyway, I don't know if you want to really go that way. So Soju definitely in a rough spot right now. You know, you can see he's thinking Revenant, right? He's got the Ivern on the bench. But yeah, and he's definitely thinking Nocturne right now. Went back and looked at that lobby, see if maybe he's got a chance. There's only a Nocturne 1, so I think you can still maybe be able to put something together to pilot yourself to like a top 4, maybe like a 4th is what you're looking at, you know, at this point. But it's a little bit tricky. Still another one of those players that's, you know, you can see Soju always wears his expressions on his on his face. I mean, everybody wears their expressions on their face, Admiral, but I'm saying his are extra on his face.
Mine are on my shoulder blades.
Face. I wear my expressions on my face. Yes, that's a.
He's really never been afraid to show them exactly as he's thinking. Is one of the things that's always been, you know, really stood out to me. And kind of watching him over these last, you know, I'd say just few seconds, really, the facial expression has changed so much in some painful looking ways, and then some like, well, wait a second, like, you know, some thought-provoking ways as well. I'm kind of curious to see, you know, what exactly Soju is planning for this, if it's anything different from, I would say, like a normal Riven Nidalee kind of look.
I mean, I like Nocturne from here. Based on the items, I like Aphelios from here. I think those are decent Aphelios items as well. So you've got a couple different directions. It kind of depends on what you hit. He does see another player with a Riven already. And this is kind of an important thing to do if you're Soju and you're undecided going into your Radiant item round, especially into 3-6. You do a lot of scouting, you look at what other people are playing, and you try to find an avenue where you're going to be able to find something strong quickly that you're not going to be too contested with. We'll see if he finds that as we go over to our resident VTuber, Rule Loves You, see what she decides with the Radiant item. Trying to wait for everyone else to decide there first.
Everyone looking around as well. It's such a crucial item. Like, this is like the most critical item in the game you're going to find. And so if you're taking a utility item, you want to make sure your utility item's matching up against what the other players tend to do. I think it's a great spot to just take your time, look at the lobbies. You get some extra time this round to think anyway, because again, you're being presented with probably your toughest decision of the game. In its importance level, and going with the Bramble here, and I think the Bramble is an excellent spot given what we saw, and there's also the Bramble item being super powerful. Like the fact that it's providing the regen as well, it's pretty rare you get like a super strong armor item that's suppressing critical damage and providing your character with a sustain effect.
Right. If you look through your lobby and you see like multiple jeweled gauntlets like I think we have in this lobby, you see things that like assassins that rely on a lot of critical hits. The Bramble Vest is going to be a generally pretty good choice. Now, it's not going to be strong enough to win this round, but as some of the carries start to come together, which looks like might be the Riven in this case for Rue, this could turn around. And you know, we've talked about HP a lot. 68 HP going into Wolves, that's still fairly comfortable.
Yeah, Broccoli hitting the threshold for the Radiant bonus here as well, down to 36 as we head into the last part of Stage 3. You know, like Stage 3 very much is like a really tough round to go through. At what point are you spending all your gold and really trying to find that big power spike? Stage 3 has really calmed down a lot since we don't have that 3-2 armory anymore. And so kind of seeing this happen and get to this point, that's one of the biggest Radiant points you can get to. It's another huge power boost. But now we're entering that stage where everyone spends their gold very rapidly and very aggressively and tries to get more powerful. Unless you're already so powerful that you get to go to 8 instead. Rue is not in that super powerful spot right now, so let's get to rolling.
So Rue looked at Prestiven's board and saw that he had a Riven 2 and another Riven on the bench already. So not only will it be difficult to find the Riven 2, but it'll be certainly difficult to think about hitting that 3-star. That said, Rue seems, for the moment anyway, to be fairly committed. Although with that Jax pickup, maybe you can pivot. The other problem is that there just aren't a lot of great items for putting together those types of carries right now. A lot of defensive items. So I think Rue's going to need to be creative and she's going to need to make some decisions pretty quick here.
Yeah, this is some really tough stuff that's been showing up too. The items are not easily presented, I'd say, in terms of how you want to use them. Rod is looking like very tough at the moment. We're building a Sunfire Cape here. A Runan's got built at this point. You have a bow, you have a rod, and you have a cloak to fill this out afterwards. So, the armory that you're getting on 4-2 here, this is a very big armory. So I like that you can craft the items that you can't see using for other things, make those strong utility items, and then hope you get the right thing here. And oh my gosh, DoA, these are not looking good.
Not putting the Sunfire on your tank as well is kind of an interesting decision there. Rakan's going to live for a long time still, so I'm going to see that. I get it. I think it's hard to say no to a Nico, especially because that's going to give you that Jax too a little bit quicker, if that's going to be the option here. And so it might be the Jax angle. Yeah, you've got Ironclad.
Yep.
Looking for that 4th Knight yet, but, from this point, you can usually take like Fortnite Jax, the 4 Knight Jax build to like a top 4. Wow, and a Rel 2? Okay, all right. So replace one of those Knights maybe. Yeah, Leona's not necessary at the moment. Get 3 Ironclad in there. Get some double Nikos actually. I didn't notice that they had 2 Nikos. So I think you use them here maybe. You don't have a lot of gold. You need to sustain your HP. I think Rue needs that Jax too.
I was leaning towards Jax in this one, but I couldn't quite figure out exactly like what the items wanted to look like. And now that I kind of see these items crafted out, having to pass up an item for a Nikos, it is kind of a painful thing sometimes. But when you're looking at a Bloodthirster Runons on your Jax with a bow that's open on your bench, and you also have an item remover plus 2 Nikos, is a much better looking spot, especially when you're talking about hitting a Rel 2 on 4-2 at this point. Like, this team got immensely more powerful in such a short duration of time, and this is going to change a ton, I'd say, as we come into the coming rounds here. If Rue's able to get a very strong item off the carousel to complete with this bow, the Jax is already improved at this point. Can the Bramble perhaps go on a Jax as like a defensive thing?
Put on the Rel, I'd say.
So much of this is just looking fantastic from Rue's perspective. And if this is lining up well against the rest of the lobby, in addition to that, you're looking at a huge, strong finish here, unless just things go absolutely entirely wrong across the entire state of the board.
Wow, Rakan frontline with the tank items. I like it, because Rakan's going to be tanky enough now to fire out and sustain. Well, maybe not against that Vel'Koz, but generally sustained pretty well. This is unique. I haven't seen this a whole lot, but I'm kind of liking it. Even if this round gets lost. I was kind of dubious about putting the tank items on the Rakan, but I admit, I think that looks really good, actually, now that I see it in action. That's cool.
I think one of the reasons it looks so good to me is because now that your Rakan is on the front line, it's going to take damage, which means it's going to heal quicker. And your Rakan isn't really that threatened anymore. You have a Sunfire and you have a Bramble on it, a Radiant Bramble. Yeah. That unit is really tough to kill. And that means it's healing the rest of your team even faster than it was before. I think that's a very smart decision from Rue's side.
Neat. Well, we have the marketing master, Econ himself, that we're going to look at the moment here. Looks like, if I saw his board, he was playing a little bit of assassin action. If I got a glimpse of that properly. Just looking around the rest of the lobby there. Probably wishing that Radiant... oh, he does have Frozen Heart on Diana. I was going to say, wish he had the Radiant one for his Diana. But no, he's got a regular one, so he's doing just fine. Radiant Ginsu's on the Nocturne.
And a very active board as we jump over to Egon's side here as well. I think the Egon's found themselves in a pretty reasonable position. I don't think that this is like the best spot you can be in, but again, you know, at times you gotta play what the game is going to give you in these spots. And right now you're sitting with a Nocturne that has a Radiant Rageblade plus a Runons. You have 4 Assassins, you got a Frozen Heart on your Diana, and you have a pretty strong front line. I'd say for Egon here, really the major concern is going to be the power level of the rest of the lobby, as well as the fact that you're sitting at 43. 43 is kind of like, you almost would just wish you had 3 less life at this point so you could get the Radiant package benefit that's taking place there. But the other thing you're hoping for is that your team's actually strong enough to, you know, win fights as well. Going up against Pocky here at level 8, and it looks like this Nocturne has recovered the aspect of having its sustained value take place. Soju, meanwhile, as we peek at their board from Egon's side, looking like a tough finish in this spot.
That's really big.
Oh, actually, but that's a huge stun. Is it enough? Oh my gosh.
Wow, all right. So Soju does take the loss there, but it doesn't lose a whole lot of HP, but still, Soju finishing in 8th is a really big deal for the tournament in general, because that means you've got one of the top teams not gaining a lot of points in this crucial final week. Now, Egon, if he can make his way up the standings a little bit, he can join his teammate Spencer towards the top of the lobby and try to vault ahead in points for them a little bit.
Yeah, and this would be a huge double finish for Egon and Spencer. You know, they had a first and 8th in the previous game. It doesn't look like that Egon's going to be 8th in this particular game as they build up their economy to try to build out some stronger units here. Going up against Precedent at the moment, but you know, Spencer sitting at 75. This is looking like another super strong game for Spencer. And as you mentioned, Soju finishing in last place. They're the #1 team in points right now. Everyone's hoping that they're getting less points.
Yep. Precedent does take a big loss as well, so both members of 8875 taking some hits here and dropping down to the bottom 4 in the lobby. Soju did win his round, so he'll still be alive for now, but he's on the verge of taking an 8th.
It's always a scary feeling.
It
is. Old TFT.
Ah, yes. The blood pressure is rising. So we've made it to Raptors. Everyone's still alive, of course. You don't see a whole lot of people going down before Raptors, although Soju is tempting that. But let's take a look at what Pakigam is up to. We mentioned the great items on his brand a little bit earlier. And so it's just a matter of, you know, getting, I guess now these items will go over into the Karma, but, you know, relying on these Mystics. Oh, my bad. Maybe going over to the Fiddlesticks here. But relying on these Mystics to, you know, get the job done. My question is, how many AP comps are in the lobby versus AD? You can change it on. Oh, there's a Heimerdinger. That's big. There's another Heimerdinger. Whoa.
Yeah, these are huge finds. Oh my gosh. Pocky is just hot streaking at the moment. My gosh. 2 Heimers. You get to replace your brand very easily. You found a Fiddlesticks too. The Fiddlesticks is with your A-bomb. It's carrying the super Frozen Heart, the scary one that I really don't ever want to see. And you have a Heimerdinger that can make it into play as well. This Karma is about to get very reasonable, I'd say. You know, this is something I've noticed too, is that a lot of players have been cutting down on their use of the Heimerdinger until it's 2-star a little bit as well. Like, I have noticed, for me personally, it's been performing a lot worse. And kind of looking at how the Karma's performing, you know, I'm curious if this has just been, like, forgotten about in the meta, because every team is, like, stationary, standing still and trying to just hack through the front line. That's exactly what Karma wants to happen, is that kind of position, but that's, you know, kind of what Jax wants to happen as well. Pocky taking a hit.
I was close. You know, we remember looking at Rue's board earlier when they made that decision to go Jax, and that's paid off. 2nd place right now for Rue Loves You. Meanwhile, on Pakigam's side, I think you're right with the Heimerdinger. There were kind of some nerfs that came through that made a difference. There's a Teemo if he wants to go more Invoker direction, but
Garen as well.
Especially after the incoming patch, especially after 11.17, I think Karma is going to come back a bit.
There's the Teemo. I imagine this Garen's getting picked up.
Yep. Gets Invoker in. Gotta pick up the Garen, right? Because you've already got the 1 on there.
Yeah, Pocky not having really time to scout at the boards either. You know, just having a lot of team decision building stuff that you're having to take place. Fiddle getting Zephyred here. That's a pretty big deal. But this Teemo is so strong into what this board looks like right now. Big Volibear hit, but look at that A-bomb and how much that's going to slow things down. Draven falls down the back line. Spencer falling this fight.
You know, I really like what Pakigam's board is doing in terms of how it's delivering its damage. You've got a lot of area of effect damage that's not going to one-shot anything, but when it starts to be layered, you're going to have a lot of cases where you're going to kill a lot of things very quickly, right? You've got Teemo Shrooms, you've got Garen's big AoE, you've got Karma hitting a bunch of people. So you've got, you know, even like, you know, even Syndra throwing someone in doing some AoE damage. So there's just a good combination of AoE as we swap to Broccoli now that Pakigam can kind of rely on.
Wow.
Okay, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, Gwen 2 coming into play in this spot.
Yeah.
You know, what I'm looking at right now is the bottom spot of this lobby, 8875. You know, Soju and Precedent are sitting at 6 and 8 health. You know, one
Yikes.
fight lost, and they're gone. They're the number 1 team right now, and what you definitely don't want is a 7th and 8th place finish when you had this you know, what looked like a stranglehold coming into this week. It looked like they were you know, solid. But this is still a 3rd week of play. Like, they both desperately need wins in this spot. I'm looking at Broccoli's board and how strong this looks right now. Aegon, you know, looked like they were in a pretty strong position, but that Nocturne is not, still needs 3 more Nocturnes in order to accomplish that. Sitting at 27 health, this board gets shredded apart now as Aegon is dropping into that single-digit health total as well. Like, this is a terrifying spot for these players to be in.
We're certainly starting to see a bit of a separation here. Soju does win his round, so still alive and now on a win streak at 6 HP. But, you know, going back to what you were saying about Team 8875, they're in a position where they could have an average day and be fine. If they have a bad day, like a really bad day, then their spot in the top 4, I think, is a little bit in jeopardy maybe. We'll see, but you're playing with fire if you're going 7th and 8th. But with the way Soju's been winning these last rounds, you know, maybe we'll see a couple spikes here on 5 after Carousel. But, you know, maybe Soju can bring it back a little bit.
Yeah, and, you know, Soju on the win streak, and Pressman also had found Riven 3 during this portion as well. You know, it is the final moment that you had in order to find those. Broccoli getting the last upgrade really available on this board. You know, of course, the Volley Bear is an upgrade that's available, but it's not really quite an upgrade that's available. It's a Volley Bear. It costs 5, and it's pretty tough to find. So that's a pretty strong board position that they're in at the moment. Jumping over to Rated side of the board, sitting at that mid-health total at the moment. Everyone's team is looking pretty darn solid, DoA.
Yeah, the end games, kind of the final comps are being reached. This one's looking pretty good. 6 Sentinel. I love the Viego with the Frozen Heart. That's going to really cause havoc in the back line. And you're starting to see more and more players pick up this Radiant Giant Slayer as well, because you just get so much bonus damage. And at this stage in the game, you're hitting all that extra bonus damage as well. So it's going to be a pretty devastating item on a Lucian.
I'm looking at 8 Lucians here as well for Rated's side. You know, this Riven 3 tearing through things. Is a Lucian 3 able to turn this around? You know, I don't think I've seen a Lucian 3 built yet. You know, Viego's trying their hardest to turn this around, but, you know, you have a really tough time converting Riven to the dark side. I'll tell you that. Precedent picking up a win. Aegon picking up a win. Soju looks like that they might be able to pick up the win here as well. God, the Jax is just running rampant if you can't check that. Everyone who needed a win got a win, DoA. This is insane.
Wow. Almost all the top 4. 3 out of the top 4 lost. And there it is. The Lucian 3.
What?
All right.
No roll. It just shows up.
Is this enough? Because, you know, I got to say, Admirable, this is one of those 3 stars that, you know, you're not going to see it and be like, all right, lobby 1, GG, I can take my hands off the keyboard, right? I think it's still going to require a lot of good positioning. You know, I think it's hopefully a top 4 for Rated's sake, but it isn't the strongest 4-cost 3-star ever. So we'll see how it goes. But meanwhile, swapping over to Broccoli, who is having a pretty decent game, but we are getting into another pretty tight lobby, aren't we?
This is super tight, and that I will say that the Vel'Koz was at a good angle, but the Vel'Koz does not have an accelerant on the mana total there, so it gets wiped out by the Teemo and the Karma combined, and that looks like bad news for Broccoli as they're looking around at the rest of the side of the board here, hoping the other players are going to lose. This A-bomb is going nuts, though. Holy smokes!
Yeah, the Frozen Heart making a big difference.
Whoa!
The Titans giving a lot of damage as well, and he's actually going to get the win over Pakigam. Well, who needs carries anyway, really?
Aegon at 8th place. Aegon found the Nocturne 3 and went 8th.
That happens. That happens sometimes with that Nocturne build. If you take a lot of damage in the mid game like Aegon did, even if you can barely squeak out that Nocturne 3, you're so dependent on positioning. And with 8 players still alive in the lobby at the time, sometimes you're kind of flipping the coin as far as if you want to be left or right with that Nocturne build. So, you know, Aegon unfortunately getting knocked out in 8th. Now the question is, can Pressivin survive? And Soju, for that matter.
Golly. The items that were found on this dragon as well, you know, I was kind of taking a look around. This shroud feels like it's extremely powerful at the moment as we go through another rolling phase here for Broccoli.
It's a lot of AP, yeah.
This is just such a powerful unit that you can find. Fiddle finds an upgrade, so perhaps is that a shift of the Frozen Heart there, or is this if I'm going to win this lobby, I really can't make it to 9. There's no time. everyone's at such a low health total. I just got to try to chase down a 3-star unit that's 4 cost and hope that it's enough to carry.
Maybe, and now that you know that one 3-star 4 cost is already out there, the pool of 4 costs is thin, so it should be easier to find it theoretically. Here's Spencer.
Zephyr on the Gwen. That's a big Zephyr.
Yeah. Let's see how much damage this Draven can do. I'm not the biggest fan of Draven at the moment, but he's untouched so far.
I will say that Draven with the Radiant RFC feels kind of like the set 1 Draven where you put RFC on him and he stayed in the corner and smacked everything on the board, and that's exactly what happened here as well. No sustain items on that Draven, able to defeat Broccoli. Spencer on level 9, and that's going to be Precedent and Pokygom getting eliminated this round as well. 7th place for Precedent. Pokygom's going to take 6th. Soju's still alive and on a win streak. If Soju is winning, they have been winning every single round since they have hit 6. And my gosh, DoA, it's been a long time since I've seen a top 5 that's this close.
Yeah, we have, 5 out of the 6 players effectively, actually, no, forget that. 6 out of the 6 players extremely close to each other. 3 players below 10, 2 players slightly above 10. But to me, the big story of this lobby here is Raditz and Broccoli, a team that's kind of in the middle of the pack right now at 86 points overall. And so being able to take 2 big placements here would catapult them ahead in the standings quite a bit.
Oh no, with 3 Ironclad, this was the team that you wanted to run into for this to happen, but the Jax got Zephyred and ran into the Viego as well. That's a second pickup from the Viego.
Oh no!
A little bit of shield.
Not like this. Oh! Oh no, Rue out in 8th. That is, or not 8th, in 5th, feels like an 8th. That is tragic. Soju, he is out as well. Does he drop below Rue? No, not quite. And wow, Broccoli and Raditz guaranteed to take top 3. If they can get 1 and 2, it's even better. Now they have to work together to try to take out Spencer and claim the top 2.
And this is where the team aspect, I feel like, hits its biggest point, is you can check mark both sides of the board if you think that both your teams can defeat it.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a difficult thing to coordinate. This feels like a lot of just the intuitive skills that take place here in terms of the positioning that players see. Lucian going to be, tucked a little bit towards the inside here. It feels like it's lined up for that Vel'Koz, but there's a Bloodthirster that's on this as Spencer's facing the Ghost. You're facing Broccoli.
The teammates play against each other, which is not the situation that you want. There's still a slim chance. Oh, that's a big loss, though. Can the Lucian 3 maybe shoot this one out? Oh my gosh, it's Lucian 3. But Broccoli is eliminated. Spencer takes a loss, too. They did it! Top 2, it's a double kill for Raditz and the Lucian 3. Forget what I said. Lucian 3 is meta, even better than Kale 2. But that's huge. That's huge for Sold Cat for Econ to get 1 and 2 in the lobby. That's exactly what they needed.
This is such a beautiful day of TFT as well. Where I would say it's like the 2 compositions that we have like most heavily criticized in these 2 weeks. It's Kale and it's Lucian now winning the first 2 lobbies that we're getting to witness this one.
It's the reverse caster curse, man. If I like say anything negative about a comp, it's immediately a first apparently.
Go play that on ladder right now. Whatever we call something that maybe shouldn't be going, that's the thing to go. My gosh, what a huge win for Soulcat for Econ in this one. First and second is literally the best you can do, and I will say that for Team 8875 though, this was a big evasion of the catastrophe that could have been the 8th and 7th place that they were positioned in for a moment on this one. So a big save from that aspect, but this puts now Soulcat for Econ, puts their team right back into the running for an ability to make that top 4 slot.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to wait a minute here while we get the results tabulated from both Lobby A and B. We just finished watching Lobby B. I'm very curious to see who ended up taking Lobby A as well, if there was another shakeup there, or if there were just teams extending their leads. We'll find out in a moment. But this has already been a really fun day of TFT. We're seeing the effects of some recent patches. We're seeing a little bit more ability power, a little bit more magic damage than I expected here in the lobby. But and we're seeing some unique stuff. Lucian 3, Kale 2, winning lobbies. So I think it's just more indication, Admirable, of just how open the meta is right now. Is that you really can put together a lot of strong boards out of a lot of different stuff. And the idea of a comp, I think, has been the loosest it's been in a long time. Where when you go into a game, you can make a lot of adaptations rather than just say, all right, well, this is going to be my final comp. If I'm playing this carry, this is what I'm always going for. You can make adaptations on the fly in a way that I think has been lacking in some other patches in the past. So it's been really fun to see.
Yeah, a lot of that's because of features that have been introduced as well. You know, the Radiant package feature, when you hit 40 health and you get some sort of variable shift that takes place there. That's a big aspect of it. The Radiant item that you draft on 3.6, that's like such a huge thing. And a lot of these features that have been introduced in set 5 are having a pretty major influence on how your team can get built when you come into a situation like this. And while we didn't see necessarily that exact same factor here for Soulcat for Econ as they took a win in this lobby, what we did see is someone encouraged to go for Lucian 3 because everyone's been ignoring that unit. They picked up the Lucian 3 and it won the lobby. DoA, this has been crazy. It's anyone's game in every single lobby.
Yeah, that's the third first for Soulcat for Econ, so they have risen to $150 earned for their team at 50 per first. And what's more than that, though, the points will move up a lot. They're going to get 18 points after that. Meanwhile, in Lobby A, Kiyun able to take first. And that was a team that we talked about, 31-32 Kyutis. They needed to get some points on the board. Emily taking fifth, so contributing a bit. Not the best, but not the worst either. And then you've got GV8 and Spicy Appies continuing to have that point disparity, right? Where GV8's been placing well in the first 2 games. Spicy Appies not so much, but still 2 games to go.
Yeah, it's been kind of a tough one for Spicy Appies. I remember when he ended his stream earlier today, I was actually watching him. You mentioned that you were watching Spicy Appies a lot and really enjoying the stream as well. And right at the very end, he's like, we had a good day, except for these last couple games where I feel like I just kind of threw. Coming into this one and now 2 poor finishes, tough to see. But for 31-32 Cuties here, this is a big spot that they had this in now. They needed some points really coming into this one, and they earned it in this lobby.
Hey, we talked about the big points going to Soulcat for Econ. They jumped to first place for the moment anyway. Still 2 games to go on the day, but that is huge. If they can finish out strong, they give themselves a strong chance to make it through to the final lobby. And remember, only 4 teams make it through. The majority of teams are not going to make it after this week. So today is the day, or tomorrow if your team's playing tomorrow. Today or tomorrow are the days you want to have those massive wins, those first and second finishes like Soulcat for Econ did.
Yeah, this is just such a huge difference here as well. And with Aegon even having 2 8th place finishes in a row, their team is still in the top 3 for this one. So imagine if Aegon had just been finishing in just some more reasonable positions. I mean, it's not like, I'm not necessarily certain it's like Aegon's doing anything unreasonable here too as well. Huge variables take place when fighting in TFT. You can't control how the fights take place. You can only set up for their outcomes. And so for Aegon in that last one, finding the Nocturne 3 and then finishing 8th place, that's like the most familiar feeling in the world for me, and why I don't like Nocturne. But I've seen Nocturne just do so well against me in so many lobbies when I see people play it. It's like crazy to me that Aegon's had back-to-back 8s here. He's such a strong player.
It's a very unforgiving comp sometimes. I've been loving playing it, but man, you do have those games. You learn a lot though. I don't know if Aegon needs to learn as much as I do, but it's a tough comp. Fun to play though. But we're gonna take a break. But while we do, you can watch something entertaining. Well, I mean, it's commercials and things, but it's also Gangly explaining how you can enjoy fantasytft.com, Ball Street rather. Of course, one of our partners here, and fun to work with as they have the great TFT fantasy stock game. So go check it out. We're going to be back in a few minutes with the final 2 games of the day. See how the points end up at the end of day 1 of week 3 here on Giant Slayer series. Don't go anywhere. More action coming up right after this.
Fantasy TFT is a free-to-play stock market game where you compete against other TFT esports fans in real time to earn prizes during the live broadcast. Click on the Open tab to see which contests are going on. After joining a contest, you'll start off with shares of each TFT competitor, as well as additional cash to buy competitors with. From there, you'll see a list of TFT competitors and a graph indicating their current prices. Now, this is where your knowledge of TFT comes in. During the matches, pay attention to each player because you can change your mind at any time. The price of each competitor will change based on their performance. Like how someone is playing, buy their shares. Think someone made a mistake, sell them before their stock goes down. Buy low and sell high to maximize your score, and if you can outtrade everyone in the market, you'll walk away with a prize.
Welcome back to Giant Slayer series presented by Wisdom, DoA, and Admirable here with you, guiding you through these amazing games of teamfight tactics. Right now, I think the main story is Sold Cat for Econ, catapulting ahead in the standings, a 1 and a 2 in Lobby B for 18 points to vault up there. Pretty impressive stuff, but can they keep it going, Admirable? We won't be watching their lobby next. We'll be going back to A, but I'm going to be very interested to see what the points look like for Lobby B after the end of this next game.
Yeah, so I was actually kind of looking around at some stuff going through Twitter, and Soju had mentioned that it looked like today was going to be so easy as they mentioned it, and right as that happens, they fall to second place in points, and I know that right now there seems to be a hair color wager that's taking place between Soju, Prestivan, Emily, and they were discussing hair colors very aggressively with some vulgar words from what I heard, but I'm really looking forward to seeing whose hair is going to get dyed in that one, because people with crazy hair colors is always a fun thing for me to see.
So if you could dye your beard any crazy color, what would you do?
I think I would do some sort of like a flag based on heritage or residency at that point. I think like a California flag dyed into my beard would seem pretty cool.
What would that be even? Like green and brown? I'm trying to remember what colors are on the California flag.
I'm picturing like the details and everything being there as well. Like the bear being very vividly available in the beard somewhere. So I feel like I'd have to hairspray my beard quite a bit.
Definitely need to do that.
Definitely doable. I see it all the time.
Okay, well, I expect that for either social media or week 4, whatever. Whenever we see you next.
What am I doing?
It's gonna happen now. You heard it here first, folks. We're waiting for the lobbies to get populated before we jump back in with Lobby A right now. And so just to catch you up to speed on the general state of things, we've got half the teams playing today here in week 3. The other half play tomorrow, but the points at the end of tomorrow across the board are going to decide the 4 teams to make it to the finals in week 4. So a lot on the line as we jump in Lobby A once again with Kiyun.
Yeah, and Kiyun, having some pretty strong performances here today. Second and first place is what they have finished in their games 1 and 2 consecutively, and so now in position to be able to find themselves near that top spot as well. They come into this game with 99 points. The 3 teams ahead of them, Aegon GG, 875, Sold Cat for Econ. They're sitting at 105, 110, and 112 points respectively. So just 6 points behind the third place team for this one. So if Emily Wang and Kiyun can have some 2 strong finishes here, they could find themselves in a second, a second or third place position after this game.
Well,
wow, that's a lot of stuff to find on the first.
And then a Gragas too.
Oh my gosh!
All right, the decisions are difficult here. Brawler Assassin is a thing. You also have the. I feel like the Gragas is maybe a way you go, but I love, this is a very smart thing to do actually. Never commit to a 2-star right away like this. It's always good in these early rounds to do this and then wait and see what you get, right? You can sell it if you need to, you can always hold on to it. You're more flexible that way. Nocturne can be a little bit hit or miss early. Yeah, sells everything. Wow, Ziggs too. Are you kidding me? And he gets the economy? This is insane. All right, this is an insane start for Kiyun.
This is the Kiyun dream, right? He pays all of his life to get this econ, and now the game's handing it to him. This is perfect. This is, in my head, if I had to pick it after all the stuff that I have seen, the way Kiyun plays the game, this is a first place finish for Kiyun. That's just the way my head is functioning right now, because he pays half of his life to get this kind of econ to begin with. What happens when the game gives it to him? This has got to be like a massive advantage for the way that he plays.
Yeah, now can he play from ahead? That's the big question, I guess.
Golly, with the way these bubbles are going, is he going to get to 20 from this? My goodness, this is insane. Pre-levels with 10 gold.
Wow, and then he gets finds the Olaf, finds the Kazakhs. So much. Like there's so many options you can do here. There's Draconic on the other side. What the? Wow. All right. Well, this is something you're certainly happy to see. Skirmisher, obviously up there. Maybe you can find another Sentinel. I kind of like this a little bit better. You can focus on the Dawnbringer, giving you a little bit more sustain this way. 2 Kazakhs, I'm 100% on board with, because that's going to be a lot of good damage. Finds Goobums.
Is he going Chug Jug?
No.
With the Gragas here? No way.
Nah, I mean, okay, so there was one player last week that did play what some would consider to be Chug Jug, which some other people would consider to be unnatural, or pathway to many abilities people would consider to be unnatural anyway. Finding out who that was. Going back through my stats here.
I don't quite remember who it was that did it either. I just remember seeing the build and being very surprised at the fact that it was performing like at all. Like, it doesn't seem like it's like a thing, but it kind of works pretty well. And so when the thing that I'm really concerned with on Kian's side here is that the game has denied him the items at the start of the game. That's really where my concern is.
Fair enough.
You just don't have that advantage early. So can you offset the difference with the gold? A 5th Gragas shows up.
Oh, let's do it.
This is a possibility, I think, but I just don't think that Kian's going to go that direction. Kian's not really much of a re-roller as much as it is like just a scale to a later spot as quickly as you can and find powerful units. Not
Silence
much of like
Admirable.
hope you find it.
At dawn we chug.
I'm sorry.
It was it will not surprise you at all to learn that it was Econ that played one game of Chug Jug last week as well. And it's like, I mean, you talk about meme comps. I don't think it gets much more memeier than the Jug of Chug. But at the same time, I think it's worth thinking about anyway. And we're getting word from our producer too that both Kyun and Emily got 0 items dropped, all gold, and that's what Kyun was freaking out at. He was looking at Emily's board, and they were both just kind of reacting to it. But no items, but major econ at least. What do you think about the double Reforger for GV8 though? I would not be super thrilled to see this if I were him.
Well, the thing that thrills me about the double Reforger is that it doesn't actually interfere with any of your drops. These are just things that can drop. At least that's what I've been told by multiple people. It's hard for me to know how to use Reforges. They tend to be a pretty desperate item for me.
Right.
But they can help mold some stuff. Like at the end of the game when you have like a belt and a bow, for instance, that's not. I would say that right now the ZZ Rot's probably one of the weakest items that you can make in the meta at the moment. So, that's when a Reforge can become, pretty good, is to save you from just like these absolutely like bottom of the barrel kinds of positions, or when you're absolutely desperate in the late game, some items aren't mattering, and maybe finding yourself a Zephyr or a Shroud can really make a big impact. That's really where the Reforges come in. So they're not exciting, but when they pay off, they're pretty exciting. It's just pretty rare that they pay off.
Just wait until we get the offensive Reforger sometime, where like the round starts, you can like throw it over on somebody else's hero and pop an item off and turn it into something useless. Just wait.
We've entered
Please
Battle
never
Royale
ever
mode
put that in the
TFT.
game, Mort. That would be terrible. But
I'm curious what GV8 would want to take here. It was heading towards a spatula. Feels like a pretty nice spatula spot.
Yeah,
spatulas
always
feel
spat first.
They feel pretty strong in this meta, I would say, by compared to some of the others. Like in some of the other ones, it's like spatulas either like ultra powerful or like it's like, oh gosh, why is this my item? In this meta, it felt like to me like it was pretty easy to use spatulas for the most part, like for an actual beneficial thing too, not necessarily like a comp manipulation kind of thing.
Well, I mean, in 5.5, it hasn't been the greatest. It's certainly been weaker than in other sets, I think. But Assassin Spat is good. Dawnbringer is useful. Legionnaire is more useful now than it used to be. So it's growing in strength again. So maybe over the course of the patch, especially with like some of the Spellweaver buffs in 11.17, spatula might get back to being more of a priority item. But just holding it for a force of nature too is never a bad thing, unless it never comes through, of course. But let's take a look at Reisner's board. Gets the early Riven with some pretty decent Riven items. Good synergies online too.
Yeah, Renzer, I feel like in a pretty reasonable spot here too. Econ's looking good. On top of this, you have a Nidalee to support this as well. Like these are pretty much like the 2 ideal 3 costs. If this is one of the directions you intend to go. Looking at Goobum's side of things though, with the Titan's Resolve and the Bloodthirster built out on this Riven and a Chain also sitting, like that's a lot of items that Goobum's has early on, and I'd say like 2 pretty solid directional items as well. The Titan's Resolve and the Bloodthirster, they kind of lead you down one direction, and it's a unit that wants to just keep attacking and potentially win a fight quite literally all on its own.
Sure.
With the Hand of Justice here, it's like a bootleg Bloodthirster, but it still kind of gets the job done. When you roll the healing aspect in the right matchup, it's perfect. When you roll the damage aspect in a matchup where you don't need to sustain as much, sometimes it can be, can feel a little bit more powerful. I'd say right now Renzer is looking in a fantastic spot, despite the fact that you're losing some of these fights and you don't have anything 2-starred. It's pretty tough to have a stronger board than this when you have no 2 stars.
Yep, that is true. Still a decent amount of HP. I mean, you're at least going to be killing a couple of units and not going to be taking, full losses, as he might actually. Okay, good. Not taking a full loss here, but it's not going to be a pretty one either, it looks like.
Hey, this is a Nidalee. This fight is still not anywhere close to over yet.
True. 45% dodge right now before the incoming patch here.
Went to the Ivern and the game decided to close it a little bit early here. Emily Wang, 66 health, key unit 84. That is a very open fort kind of situation that Emily Wang has found herself in at this point. However, that has shown to itself to not be necessarily a bad thing at this point. Like finding that Radiant bonus very soon before other players do can sometimes put you in such a catapult of momentum that you're able to get ahead of those players for the rest of the game at times. So a lot of that just depends on what the rest of the players are finding. So I'd say for Emily Wang here, this is a very deliberate kind of game plan that's taking place, especially given the discussion of the gold thing that you had mentioned earlier. Finds 2 Rakans here for Renzer. Oh my, what the?
Oh, what?
What?
All right. We'll just get to Rakan too, just out of the boxes there. I mean, you could just sell the other one and then free up that item, which I think is a pretty easy choice here. Then again, you could just hold it, and nah, you're not gonna hold it. You're gonna free that Chain Vest at some point. But yeah, finding a Rakan 2 is a good 2-star. It can almost be a little bit of a carry early on, not in terms of the damage it does on its own, which is pretty significant, but just the way it sustains. Well, let's take a look at Emily's board right now. 4 Brawler, pretty early, 3 Draconic. So this is like the ultimate eco start, right? If you're going to capitalize on an all gold start, getting Draconic online and just getting that type of economy going as well is probably going to be the way to do it. But you got to have it pay off. You got to find the Heimerdinger a little bit later. You got to get the Revenants online and things like that. Or you have to have a good transition plan to pivot out of it. It's just not going to be a strong board right now with just the Ashe too.
Yeah, it's not that strong of a board, but there's a couple things I want to point out. Number one, Emily really doesn't have any items right now, and this team is going to win this fight. Number two is Emily is on level 6 with 48 gold on 3-1. That's not usual. Usually when you're on level 6 at 3-1, you have like 20 gold left and you're on a big win streak. When you have this much gold, a lot of things can change. So I am very interested to see how Emily can crank power out of this one, because right now you've improved the Draconic position. You have 2 stronger units that are pressuring that opposite corner. They're doing a little bit more damage. Emily put some gold into the leveling aspect at this point. This is going to be a very quick 7 with a lot of gold. And with this many pairs, Emily decides, you know what, a roll is worth it. I had so many strong upgrades, finds 2 of the brawlers to put more HP online. It gives more time to these 2 corner pressures. And I think that Emily has got to feel like that they're in a fantastic spot at this point.
Yeah, that's a great example of the video Mismatch Socks just put out in terms of when to roll. Having those pairs like that, minimal economic contribution for a much stronger board, and that's going to help Emily out a lot. Also, shout out to Socks, congrats on being a dad. As of today,
love to see it.
Yep, I'm sure it's not going to affect his play at all. He can handle it. But Emily doing a good job of utilizing that skill of knowing when to roll and knowing how much to roll to take advantage of some of those pairs there too.
Taking a look at Spicy Appy's board. See, this is kind of like the almost exact opposite of that last position as well too, where like the rolls feel like that they're necessary in order to improve the board, and you don't have this super strong econ that's going into it. You know, for Spicy Appy's, it's been a tough start to the day with an 8th place and a 7th place finish that have taken place. This board is looking okay, but you know, items are mostly utility at this point, and these are 1-star units in the back line that are hoping to get the job done, and this is a really tough kind of position, I think, to get the job done from right now. You're relying super heavily on this front line to last for quite a while.
Yeah, and Spicy Appy's as well has had a rough day. It's a 7th and an 8th, so you know, at some point you got to get something going here.
A lot of stuns.
Yeah, I do like the items. And I do like the tankiness of the front line, but you know, you brought up a good point where the back line is just going to need so much time to do its damage that it's tough in a lot of these rounds. That said, I think he's got enough to kind of grind out some of these rounds in stage 3, but as the game goes on, you're going to really need to find some upgrades. And you talk about pairs, you've got the Varus pair, you've got the Ashe pair, so just not a lot of gold to roll with. That's the thing.
Yeah, it's a spot where Spicy Appy's really, I think, can't afford to roll more at this spot, with just falling too far behind. However, just, you know, the 2 belt items on the Rel 1-star, you know, Rel 1-star took a health nerf, and it was really tough, I think, to use a 1-star Rel and expect the ability to take place, to get that shield and get that stun. So when you have these 2 belt items on the Rel 1, it feels like it's kind of back to its original state. It's very powerful. The utility items are affecting your opponent's heal as well as healing your own board, and you're getting back to that stun and shield. And you saw in that last fight how the timing on the stuns all lined up. It was so important that the timing was spread on all these as well. Finding a second Rel off of the carousel holding a cloak item, like this is something else that could be huge impactful as well. You know, if you found an early 2-star rel, your board is suddenly much more resilient than it was with just the 1-star rel.
Yeah, and where he's already got a Runin's Hurricane built, he's not really needing that cloak to go with the bow as much as you would normally. So, you know, there's a lot of situations where you just let it combine on the rel and then turn it into, you know, like a Dragon's Claw or something like that.
Yeah, just trying to avoid the corner pressure at this point. You see Emily's got both corners attacked at the moment, and this is a lot of HP that's on the board, so a ton of work for this Nautilus and rel to buy time.
Right, 3 out of the brawlers, 2-starred. The 4 brawler buff gives 1,000 HP to each brawler, so that is a lot of HP to burn through for this Varus and this Ashe.
It is possible, though.
I mean, yeah, the Sunfire Cape helps a lot, actually. That does spread a lot of good damage across the board, but don't know if it's going to be quite enough this time.
It's not quite enough, but a lot of chewed through on this spot. You know, that Nunu, I was afraid it was going to either attack the Varus or eat the rel right away. Instead, down to 3 units on that one. So, you know, not a hit that you're happy to take from Spicy Happy spot, but definitely not as bad as it could have been.
Yep. So DQA, down in 7th, decides to go with the Radiant Archangel staff because he does have the Vel'Koz, so you're going to get a lot of value out of that. 3 redeemed, so it looks like with that, wow, that's a Vel'Koz too. That's an extremely early Vel'Koz too, actually, for DQA here at 3-6. Wow, that's pretty nutty. So yeah, of course you're going to want to try to capitalize on that.
It does have a belt equipped, and it looks like it's going to get a Warmogs as well. I don't know if this is some sort of weird tech choice, or if this is like a we're going to go to 8 and find Heimerdinger sort of spot that DQA is in at the moment. This is very unusual, and I've never seen a Vel'Koz equipped this way before. But it still is going to be doing a lot. This is still a Vel'Koz 2 at 3-6.
Sure. How does Vel'Koz even wear belts? That's what I'm wondering. It's kind of tie him around his,
Where do they go?
Legs or something. Yeah. All sorts of lore questions abound there. But, you know, the front line isn't the strongest, but if the Vel'Koz goes off, you can see it just does a lot of damage. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, not like this.
That's a great loss to take going into these Wolves, though. It was the minimal loss. It's a 5th loss in a row. So the gold is immense for DQA. This is just an embarrassment of riches. And your board is quite strong. As soon as this front line gets equipped, I feel like your team is very easily going to take some soft losses to get to 8.
Yeah, there's stuff you're ready to ditch too as well. You've got the Aatrox, which you'd rather replace with some other redeemed, you know, theoretically like a rel or something like that. So there's a lot of improvements that can be made on the 4-1 roll down theoretically.
I think this is my first criticism I've ever delivered in today. I would have sold that Legionnaire, that Aatrox there, to guarantee that I hit 50 gold.
Really?
That's it.
He's your redeemed though.
I
think if you drop redeemed, you're in big trouble. So the interest is nice,
here,
but
right?
the
he's
risk
not
would be
rolling.
big.
Wow.
That is very bold, especially because you've already got the 2-star Vel'Koz, so it's not like you need to try to rush that. So
it's a true story. I mean, oh wow, Teemo gets found for Nubao on 7, and I feel like Nubao really understands the Teemo equipped situation here. You know, Nubao very much a player that levels a ton. I've seen. Again, kind of plays every aspect of it, but the general favor that I've noticed from Nubao is to level up and find more powerful stuff, but you have to be equipped to be able to level up. So that's the big one to take note of there. Teemo gets the Radiant Death Cap, and look at how much damage that level 1 Teemo does.
Yeah, he'll do quite a bit. He could even make it stronger, but I think he's holding out for maybe like a rod for a Jewel Gauntlet or something like that.
I mean, that was a massive amount of damage. Just a lot of forecasts get sold here on Nubao's side, but this Teemo, you know, it really, really outlines where your team wants to be going from a spot like this.
Yeah. And he's got a Nico as well, so you can get that 6 HP discount if you find another Teemo at this point to get the Nico, the last one.
EQA takes a loss, is the first player to receive the Radiant bonus, and there we get a look at what it was, some items, and there's the level up to 8 on 4-2. And I think the rest of the gold is going to try to find its way into play at this point.
Nice. That's pretty
finds.
Huge. Yeah, hitting the Volibear is pretty nice. He doesn't have Revenant to go with it. There we go. No. Yeah, there's 2 Revenant, at least finds the Fiddlesticks. This board's starting to come together. It's still not looking the strongest, but he's got some items to try to, you know, improve that a little bit. The Vel'Koz items are a little bit suspect, but you might be able to escape 8th with this.
Yeah, this feels like a rebuild the Vel'Koz kind of situation to me. This it looks to me like you want a Sunfire Cape, perhaps in this front line, or it's a take your time and figure it out sort of spot for DQA. You know, this board got much more powerful, and I want to point out the one mistake that I have constantly made when playing these A-bomb compositions with Vel'Koz is you'll notice that DQA at the end replaced the Callista with units that support the board further. I have very greedily always held on to that 4th A-bomb in play, and I just don't think you need it sometimes. It's important to identify how more powerful the other units can get, and that I think is heavily based on what items your Abomination is going to be receiving. The fewer items, the fewer the A-bomb.
I think honestly right now in the meta, the only time you go above 3 A-bomb is if you get like an early Abomination Spatula and you have an opportunity to just make a ridiculously strong 5 A-bomb board. But
wow,
looking at what Emily's up to here, got the golden eggs rolling. Where is the Heimerdinger though?
Force of Nature as well, sitting on that 5th Draconic that's in play. So Emily working on cracking these golden eggs here, and this is kind of a tough spot to be in. You know, like players are certainly making their boards more powerful. They're making their boards much more dangerous, and you're sitting on the golden eggs. This is very much like the Ornn from set 4.5 in set 4.5, where you had a limited amount of time where you could rely on Ornn weakening your board in order to try to get some stronger payout from the unit coming aboard. But when you have the Force of Nature here and you're able to get to 8, it's so much different. Just look at this spot here. You're up against a Vel'Koz that's not fully equipped in the ideal way, and you're still taking a pretty big loss to this. I think Emily's time for the 5 Draconic is very limited at this point.
Especially 29 HP, yeah. And the person in 8th is beating you. That is a concern. A bigger concern is that both Emily and Kiyun are in our bot 4 right now, so something needs to turn around in a big way because they were kind of towards the bottom in terms of overall points as well, and you don't want that.
So here we go. What are you picking up item-wise here? I didn't really have a solid image in my head of what the items wanted to be.
Probably too.
On Emily Wang's side.
Because
here's what you tend to grab, I feel like, when you're caster comps.
Again, you're thinking about Heimerdinger, right? So the problem is that your Heimerdinger doesn't have any mana generation items, and so the tier can be part of that, but now I guess you're really hoping for like a sword to drop off Raptors, so you've got the Shojins. It's definitely a little bit of a tricky situation. Akshan, Gwen. Another Gwen?
Well, it's interesting. You know, I think Gwen is a pretty high potential to carry these kinds of items at times. Vel'Koz gets found. Heimer gets found. I do think that Heimer is a much better candidate for carrying these items than Gwen is. But honestly, it's like whichever one hits 2-star first feels like the one I want to have the items on. It's going to be the Heimer, of course, who's going to also carry the tier. Emily's going to hold out, I think, and try to get a Shojin for this last spot. But the front line supported here. The damage is pretty good. You just need the time to get the damage. And against Spicy Happy's board, this is kind of the team that gives you time for it. You know, that this team is also trying to buy time for these positions. Which one wins? Is it the Varus or the Heimerdinger?
I mean, the Heimerdinger went off, but some of those bolts kind of miss a little bit. So not the greatest hit with the Heimerdinger, and so it's going to be a loss. But I think the bigger problem is the one that we've been talking about already, where the Heimerdinger just isn't casting fast enough right now. So hopefully for Emily, a sword drops off Raptors. For now, we're going to go check out Spicy Appies, who's currently in 3rd. And Spicy Appies, 7th and 8th so far, needs to have a good result. Try to get back into things. 4 knights at the moment, it looks like. Didn't see the rest of the board, but doing some scouting. Looking at GVA, looking at his teammate, probably discussing right now what the plan is going to be for the late game. Because right now, they occupy 2 spots in the top 4.
Yeah, curious if they're sharing a pool together. Yep, they timed it perfectly. And so I guess the idea is that how can you make it as even as you can? That's sort of the notion here. Or rather, who do you want to keep winning? You know, that's another notion that could be a tide there. I do think the Spicy Appies is in a pretty strong spot here. The Varus is strongly equipped, although it doesn't have a sustain item. But the Rel holding on to these items plus the Dragon's Claw means that Rel is not falling to the AP damage very quickly at all. And that's a huge impact. Like, that's the sustain for Varus at that point, is that the Rel is providing a shield to that corner a very large percentage of the time.
Pretty good result for that battle. Not a ton of damage done to GV8. Wasn't like the I mean, it was a decent amount, but it wasn't like a super one-sided round. So I think that's what they were trying to shoot for, as best they could anyway.
And taking a look now as the stage 4 comes to a close, the bottom 4 is very tightly packed. The top 4 fairly tightly packed, I would say. As players' compositions come together as well, this is where things start to get really dangerous, is heading into this stage 5, where it's like this final spot where players are going to be, spending all of their gold to try to improve, or they have enough, they think they can wait, and they can find and plan for the later improvements that take place in this one. Spicy Appy's selling up to 50, knowing they're just not going to have that Jackson play very soon at all. Some more rolls that are coming in here as well at level 7, so this tells me that perhaps they're hunting down this Varus, and that's maybe the intent here.
Yeah, I mean, level 7, not as great to reroll for those 2 costs at level 6, so it's going to be tough if the Varus is a plan. Whoa! All right, couple 3 stars getting hit for Resner in the meantime, for Dawnbringer, and, that Rakan 3 is so ridiculously strong right now. You've got the Radiant Trap Claw as well, so that means everybody gets the shield that negates 1 spell, and that Riven has pretty great items. You replace that Hand of Justice with a Bloodthirster and it'd be just about perfect.
I mean, my gosh, these are insanely strong items here as well. Just looking at the way the board's crossing out, this Rakan gets to go frontline. You 3-starred the 3 units that you're looking for. You did it at the start of stage 5, so you're ahead of the curve on this one. This is looking like potential first place here from Renzer's side. Kiyun taking a big hit, Nubal taking a hit. I feel like the top spot just got, pretty heavily lopsided in Renzer's favor. And if you're in this bottom part of this lobby, now is not the time to queue into this. This team is at its peak right now.
Yeah, I think you're feeling really comfortable if you're Reisner for sure. And now it just takes a matter of scouting and positioning to just ensure that you can keep the wins going. Because you have a chance too right now to do a lot of damage to teams. You mentioned too, you just peaked, right? So when you're in that situation where that you're massively stronger than some of the boards in the lobby, you position for those specifically so that when you hit them, you can do the maximum amount of damage,
Yeah, and for GV8 here, when it's effectively the same kind of team that's taking place here, you have a bunch of Revenants and you have a Karma that's cranking in the back line, you're going to reduce the damage that you're taking here. But when these teams line up, you know whose team is winning at this point. It's Renzer's. So GV8 taking a 14-point hit here. Kiyun finishing 8th place after what had started in that one. My gosh, DoA, these teams are so strong coming into 5-2. It's pretty rare that you see this many strong teams at 5-2.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty explosive finish for sure. Goobums right now also number 2 in the lobby. So that's we've got basically 2 teams, not basically, we've got literally 2 teams making up our top 4 right now in Goobums and Reisner, and then GV8 and Spicy Appies.
Emily finding a Heimerdinger 2 on the side. Spicy Appy's finding the Varus 3.
Okay.
My gosh, when one of the players starts hitting too, it kind of enables another player to hit if they're not rolling for the exact same composition, because it's thinning out that pool. And so when that second player hits, and then the third player hits, and the fourth player hits, that's what's happening in this lobby right now, and the teams get so powerful. So finding the right position as you're keeping track of your opponent pool, that's really such a major factor when you get to a spot like this, is knowing when you're facing the strongest teams, the teams that you're going to lose to, and trying to minimize that impact.
Yeah. Speaking of losing, unfortunately, Kiyun takes an early 8th. So after a good start to the day with a 2nd and a 1st, that's going to be a rough finish for game number 3 at least. Emily's still in it, but maybe not for long. We'll see. As only 7 HP for Emily right now as well. DQA on the bubble, 5 HP, trying to stay alive. And we do have a bit of a disparity this lobby, Admirable, where we have a decent health gap between 3rd place and the rest of the lobby.
Yeah, this is just massive at this point too. I mean, look at the bottom 3 currently, after 8th place has been decided, is separated by 4 HP, and if any of them take a loss, that's basically out. So yeah. I think the teams you want to face right now are the players in the bottom 4. If you're in the bottom 4, well, you're trying to knock them out at this point. You just want to make sure you're not 7th. You have so much work and your team is so strong.
You're saying you want to play against the weaker boards, huh? That's some sage advice there. That's what I want to do too. What a coincidence. I love the double trap claw slam by DQA. Whoa. There. You can stack that bonus. So if you do get multiple trap claws, feel fine putting them on the same person, because it does negate 2 spells instead of 1.
Big transition
over to GV8. Yeah, making some swaps here, trying to get the Akshan and the Aphelios rolling.
So here we go. Is this a big enough swap? Is this going to get it done? Aphelios now taken away at that back line, gets hit by the volley bear, and the Heimerdinger cast is it coming? Is it going to connect? The Teemo has not been able to find that Aphelios just yet. And my gosh, this Aphelios has a little bit more time, gets hit. There's the shield pops. Is that going to be enough? It wipes out so much of the board. But GV8 taking a hit of only 6 in this one. And when you see that board from New Owl and you take a hit from 6 here, it's got to feel pretty good. Spicy Appies in 7th. Emily Wang in 6th. DQA alive still with 5 HP remaining. I think for GV8, they made a pretty strong call here. It was a transition to bleed slower, and I think that secures a stronger position.
Yeah, I kind of wonder, you know, in this situation, if the Aphelios 2 is actually stronger than the Akshan 1 would be. I think the Aphelios 2 is still stronger a little bit, but man, you are really riding a razor's edge when you're like GV8 was in that last round and you're waiting for that second cast that kind of determines the round. Like, if that Aphelios had died a couple milliseconds sooner, that would have been a much bigger loss. And that's the concern. It's getting Aphelios enough casts.
Goobums with that, that's a very big Radiant Warmogs in that Rel. So that Rel is going to be occupying time. Viego's got a hold of this Aphelios. Aphelios recovers and gets a big shot, though. Wipes out that Viego, and Goobums now needs this, he needs this Draven to start critting. Finds the Aphelios, knocks it out. That's going to be a win for Goobums, but GV8 not out of it yet. Takes an 11-point hit down to just 5. Holy smokes, these fights are so tight.
Well, this is what I'm talking about, right? As Nubal goes out in 5th, so we've got our top 4, but that's the concern, right? Where that Aphelios didn't get taken by the Viego, but he did get CC'd for like 5 seconds. And so that's 5 seconds where Aphelios isn't casting. And if you don't get at least 2 Aphelios casts off, this type of board is going to struggle, right? So another swap being made, the Mystics being put in now for GV8, but it's all about keeping that Aphelios safe.
I think the call still for GV8 here was still successful, though. If you find the Akshan, maybe you have a chance to make something happen. It's very unlikely that you do, so they committed to the Aphelios and bled slower. Found themselves a top 4. I think it's really tough to kind of be stronger than this, honestly. You know, these are bold calls you have to make, where you have to go, you know what, my team's just not that strong. I'm really not going to get there. Let's just make the team as strong as we can. And I think that paid off this game.
100%. And getting to top 4, that kind of says it all, right? Like, I mean, you've gained LP, as it were. You're getting good points in the tournament. So I think even if you might not get first, I think you're pretty happy with how this turned out.
One more spot from this, I would call this a massive success on GV8's side. So here we go against DQA, who made it to level 9, and their board is looking pretty massive. 2 trap claws in the back as well. Not necessarily good for Aphelios. Aphelios getting CC'd to death, but the middle of this board getting hacked down from both sides, and that Radiant Redemption is making a huge difference. And here comes the Aphelios cast, and there's a very limited options right now, but the trap claw absorbs it from the Teemo's end. The Abomination, it's too strong, and it gets absorbed by everything. Oh my gosh, the A-bomb didn't die in time. If the A-bomb died sooner, the Teemo would have won.
That was very close to Cruel coming into play and that Teemo winning every 1v1. Goobums out in 3rd, but at least this does mean that Goobums and Resner have secured at least first or at least 2 out of the top 3. So they're still going to come out of this with a lot of points for Team Gubs. So that's a nice finish for them. Now the question is, can GV8 continue to carry his team? Because once again, Spicy Appies finishes in the bottom 2 for the 3rd time today. It has been GV8 putting this squad on his back and just a hard carrying on week 3 here.
Look, and some fortunate outcomes too. You know, in order to capitalize on luck, you have to be ready for it and to seize the opportunity. And GV8, GV8 knows he's not going to win this lobby at this point. Like, look at the team disparity here. It's massive. GV8 changed the teams, made the call, said I have to load this up and hope that it works. Got the right matchups, got to top 2. Unreal that happened there as we moved to the other lobby that we weren't able to watch.
It's impressive stuff, but a win overall for Team Gub in Lobby A. Let's move over to Lobby B. Is it still going? Couple rounds remaining here. Press event, Soju. So 8875, getting 2 out of the top 3 spots guaranteed. And then Broccoli, a player again that had struggled a little bit in the tournament, able to make a good showing here, at least in game 3 of the day. And we'll see if he can maybe claim a top 2. Looking rough though. That is a 2-star Dawnbringer Volibear.
Yeah, it's a very strong find at this point in the game too. A huge roll down there. as you notice that Soju also sold the Nidalee to free up that Zephyr so that they could more manipulate it and try to get that second spot as well. And so up against Precedent at this point, I'm not sure that's where you want to be using the Zephyr, quite honestly. But, you know, you do have to be winning the fight as well. And Precedent, you know, has a pretty large lead, what it looks like, against the rest of the board at the moment. Broccoli looking like they're going to win that one.
Double kill's not possible here. Never mind. All three players remain. Just Precedent with the win streak here. Looking very strong.
Soju, what do you take here in this spot as well?
Oh, maybe like a Ionic Spark or another Dawnbringer emblem. What am I talking about? Never mind. Broccoli's going to steal it away. Broccoli's had a pretty good day today, actually. He, let's see. It was a 6 in the first game, so, or a 7th rather in the first game, so not the greatest, but then a 2nd, and then now at least a 3rd, so not too bad for that team.
Zeke's getting out of there as Precedent and Soju, I think, need to, you know, consider how to not knock Soju out of this one. At the same time, try to knock Broccoli out first.
Sure.
So I'm curious what angle you approach that from. Do you try to just line up both your teams against what Broccoli is doing, or do you try to condense your teams and not take a big hit against each other?
I think you 100% just position for Broccoli. Just like, you know, destroy the vegetable, meat products all the way. And see what you can do. But he is going to go up against the Ghost of Soju. So this might be a tough one. That board is so strong, though, for Precedent. And he's got 4 Mystic. Like, you'd think he'd be able to survive this. And yeah, as the Heimerdinger cast come through, it's looking pretty good.
Yeah, a lot of Renewer stuff going on. A lot of Mystic stuff going on there. Pretty easy win from Precedent's side. So this is the fight to pay attention to. It looks like Soju is knocked out of that one. Broccoli survives the attack of the non-vegans.
Yep,
as the metaphor that DoA was providing. The thing that I have always loved about DoA is these crazy metaphors that just somehow make so much logical sense.
If you don't think about it too much anyway, yeah. Well, Soju and Precedent still with a great finish in this lobby at least 2nd and 3rd, probably 1st and 3rd. It all depends on if Broccoli can take out Precedent here, but Broccoli, again, getting a second of the day. It's still going to be putting together a pretty good personal result anyway. Is there any hope of beating this board?
Well, on Broccoli's side, it's looking really tough. I would say the Teemo 2 can certainly crank, but there's a lot of variable to it. And when it gets stunned, it really cuts some of that variable. And there goes the Teemo, and that tells me that Broccoli is going to be out of this one. I mean, Precedent's board is about as capped can get. And that's a demonstration of that.
It's not only just the damage, but it's also the 4 Mystic added in there at the end. That's just going to make that board unkillable. And a huge result for Precedent there. And he needed that, frankly, because he had a 6th and a 7th going into this game. So it'd been a little bit rough on the day. Now taking a 1st, Soju as well, a middling day, and a 6th and a 6th and a 4th. No, 5th and a 4th, I believe, coming into this one. So that's going to be a little boost for a team that was already near the top, but needed, again, that consistent result to kind of help theoretically secure that spot in the top 4. You need a performance like that if you want to make it through to the final lobby.
Yeah, and that's exactly like where the aim is at that point if you're sitting in that top spot. The strong finishes help balance out the bad ones, because all you need for the day is just a pretty decent one. And so a pretty decent one, it's very rare that I'm super excited about just a pretty decent one. But if you're sitting at the top, that's the place to be right now. Just don't blow it.
Yeah, I mean, really, that is it. Just don't blow it. Just produce those consistent results and try to get through. But let's take a look at our results. Obviously, Team Gub or Goob. Team Goob taking first place in Lobby A, $100 total for them. That means they've gotten 2 firsts over the course of the tournament. Resner and Goobums, of course, trying to move up the standings as they need it. They're kind of middling, but going to be up a little bit farther now. Lobby B, we just saw that one end with a big finish for 8875 for Soju and Precedent. Meanwhile, let's see, we got Econ and Spencer both taking bot 4s. That's a little bit rough there. Pocky and Rue, a little bit of point disparity as well. Now I gotta just wait and see what the overall results will be in a moment. Just checking in with the pool play earnings for 8875 in the meantime.
Yeah, and honestly, this is kind of one of the most surprising factors to me is that with 8875, this is only their 3rd lobby win, and they're sitting in first place in points at the moment. That tells you how strong it is to just finish well. You don't have to win lobbies to have success. There's formats in TFT, like the tournament formats with the checkmate format, where one of the ways you win the tournament is you got to get a first after you reach a threshold. In this particular one, you're just trying to hit a big threshold of points, which is the top 4. Strong finishes are what do that, not first place finishes.
Yep, that's true. Between the two of them, they had taken, the majority of the bot 4s were 5th places. So you're right on the outside of that, right? And then only a couple 8s beyond that. So overall, like you mentioned, consistent, lots of top 4 finishes for that team. Still on top of the point standings. But definitely some threats creeping up there. And the other thing to keep in mind, there's teams that haven't even played, right? Yeah. Like that are in the 90s, like Ramblin' Robin, that are going to be massive threats tomorrow to catch up.
Yeah, Ramblin' Robin, that's been one of the most consistent finishing teams as well. You know, they've just solidly performed the entire time, and that's one of the biggest standouts, I would say, from both Ramblin' and from Robin songs, is that they just don't really finish poorly. They don't always finish in first, but you don't have to. You know, just looking at hitting those marks. But for me, one of the biggest comebacks from here is just seeing that, you know, Team Goob has made it to the top 4 in points. You know, even with half the teams still yet to play, the fact that they have come from such a I'd say poor position as they seemed to be in after week 1, and then coming into this week, they weren't in fantastic shape, and somehow right now they are at least in the top 4 barrier.
I think the issue is that at the end of the day, or the end of the day tomorrow really is what we're going to be thinking about the most. I'm predicting that if you aren't in like the low 130s, you're not going to have much of a chance to make it to that final lobby. You're not going to have much of a chance to be one of those top 4 teams. So I think that's going to be the target number a lot of these teams are going to be shooting for. You look at a team like Wide People Happy going into tomorrow already has 96 points. So being at what, like 109, 106 in the team we were just talking about, like with one game remaining on the day, you're going to need to have another amazing day amazing game rather, to even have a shot, I think, at making that top 4. So good results on the day, but you know, it's still going to be pretty tricky to make it through because only 4 teams are going to survive.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at it just from the perspective of like who the top 4 teams are for tomorrow as well. The top 4 teams just in tomorrow's 8 teams have about 45 points minimum per week that we're coming into this one. So after 3 weeks, that's 135 points if you kept up that average for that one. So I think you made an excellent point with that one. If you're not like in the 130 point range, it's going to be really tough to see you in that top 4, but it is still possible. Kicking things off here in game 4 with Prestovit.
Not to rain on anyone's parade, but the numbers don't lie, Admirable.
Well, I am here to rain on everyone's parade, Dylan, because I hate the outside and rain sucks.
Wow. All right. What about like a very like soothing, you know, thunderstorm? You get the thunder rumbling and all that. You're inside, you're cozy. Then it can be kind of nice.
Oh yeah, that's just a true story. Yeah. You know, I do like occasionally strolling through a dewy meadow.
Yeah, exactly. One of our producers saying she likes the rain as well. I think in the right circumstances, it's okay. You know, just maybe not like the Alanis Morissette song where it's rain on your wedding day. That doesn't sound as good, you know, unless it's an indoor wedding next to a cozy fireplace. I don't know.
God, there's just nothing like DoA metaphors and analogies. You'll love to see them.
Sure, a precious raindrop. Prestovit is the player we're going to take a look at here as he was first in his last game here as we go into the final game of the day here. We're going to be watching Lobby B once again. Double Aatrox start. What does it mean? Probably means you're going to sell them. But we'll see what else he finds.
2 belts and a sword as well. Like a pretty strong kickoff here in terms of items. You know, Warmog, it certainly has died down a little bit in terms of its targets. You know, players have been, you know, really heavily leaning towards Sunfire Cape and towards Redemption. But Warmogs is certainly still, it's not a bad item to start things off with. It makes your board very resilient. And so for Prestovit, finding this Skirmisher 2-star with the Udyr alongside the fact that you have a Warmogs and a sword, this is a pretty sturdy early spot to be in, I would say. As long as you just, you know, kind of manage to make 2-star units, I think your board's going to be looking pretty strong here.
Yeah. Find that early Nunu, play some light snack, you know? Get that Nunu 3 carry going. Really, I mean, honestly, like I joke, but he's looking for a Nunu for sure right now. I mean, getting early Abomination would be really nice. You know, a couple pairs there to think about.
This is also
could
like,
go a couple different directions. You know, Senatu is obviously a strong early champ too.
Yeah, this is also one of the spots too where like you know, Nunu is a very rarely, I'd say, itemized unit. You know, you put some belts on him and he tanks really well. But when you have like Warmogs and a sword, like there's a possibility that this could be like Chinese Nunu, where you equip it with a Hextech Gunblade, you 3-star it, and it just eats the entire board. Like it's so hard to kill a 3-star Nunu that is a Warmog and a Hextech. And when you have this early A-bomb stuff, you actually have a reason to kind of lean that way. And I feel like every single time I've seen that unit, it's been very rare, but it's always started with a Warmog. And I'm kind of seeing all those puzzle pieces come into play now. I'm curious if Prestivant has that in mind at all.
I think you always have it in the back of your mind, but I would love to see him play it. But, you know, again, we're talking about what's going to give you a consistent result for 8875. And as much as I love that build, not maybe the most consistent results unless you're really handed it on a silver platter. So probably going to see something else, but that doesn't mean I don't want to see it for sure. Let's check out what Broccoli's up to, though. Thinking hard about the armory choice. All right.
Second rod.
Yeah. So,
that very much leans you in the caster direction.
Sure does. We've seen a lot of ability power here today.
Yeah,
Okay.
Ionic Spark.
Strong early game item. You're going to be able to get a lot of extra damage on your opponents that way.
It's a very strong utility item, honestly. I'd say Ionic Spark is probably one of my most underused items that I just probably should be using more as well. Like the fact that this item has been modified so many times, like in the past set and a half, it's gotten to this point now where it's like you just kind of forgot everything that it did if you didn't keep up to date with what this item does.
Sure.
It's a lot stronger than it seems like. And I'm hoping you can kind of see that here. Just like, it seems like it's not very much, but you know, the MR reduction is a lot of extra damage you get to deal.
It is. You're not going to get as much value against the Vayne with it for sure. She's not going to be exactly casting a ton. But I think Radiant Ionic Spark definitely made a bit of a splash before it. I think it got a little bit of a nerf, but it still is a strong Radiant item. But regular Ionic Spark hasn't been built as much lately. I mean, a lot of that is due to just the the dearth of ability power comps that have existed in 5.5. Again, I think that's all going to change. I think after the next patch, we're going to head into a meta where ability power comps are much more prevalent, especially because Karma's coming back, I think. But we'll see.
I've enjoyed seeing the slight tick-ups of Karma damage to go, what's that threshold where it's too good? I'm kind of hoping we do find that too good point, so instead of nerfing by 5 points, they're going to have to nerf by like 2 damage. You know, it's something I really haven't seen before. I'm just kind of hoping we can see it. Going in the Rule of You fight here. Just Gragas is such a tank. My gosh, it's so hard to kill this thing.
Yeah, he's definitely good early game for sure. Now the question is, can he survive? All right, yeah, the stun didn't reach all the way to the backline for the Ziggs. It's big because that's one more gold for Broccoli too, so that means the interest was met as well.
Yeah, 2 ticks on the level there because of that win.
It's going to
be a big deal.
Zyra would be a better Spellweaver, theoretically. But okay,
Sunfire?
Chain Vest. There is a belt, so this is going to be a Sunfire cape then for the Gragas as well. So just kind of using some of those early game utility items that also add a lot of meaningful damage in stage 2. I think that's smart. You're going to be maintaining your HP. You're going to be theoretically getting a bit of a win streak going. You're going to come into stage 3-1 with hopefully some more items, but we'll see. We're going over to Pokegom's board now. A little bit of everything there.
Yeah, kind of curious about this one as well. You know, Pocky hanging out with Tier Chain Sword with a Titan's Resolve already built. You know, I'm not seeing a ton of synergy between these items except for like a Frozen Heart, which definitely you don't want on the back line. So not really a ton of utilization here. And this is something we were discussing earlier too, was like the use of Guardian Angel, where I feel like this item is either incredibly good, which is rare, or it's just not that super impactful, which is kind of what it's felt like in set 5.5.
Yeah, I mean, I've been seeing more people build it lately, but I haven't built it myself. I'm not super convinced. That said, I think in certain lobbies, if you're, A, missing an item, you have a free slot on your carry late game, and B, there's a lot of very immediate damage coming through via either assassins or, like a Vel'Koz or something like that, or maybe like a big Teemo or something. There are reasons to build it. It just doesn't seem like there's a ton of them right at the moment. But I think I'm starting to kind of wonder if it's maybe an item people are sleeping on a little bit too.
Is Pocky going the Aatrox reroll?
It's possible. It's not a terrible build if you really hit, but I don't know if six poppies is really constitutes as hitting enough 1-stars to really go for it. We'll see.
Aegon already up to 50 gold. How does Aegon do this? Like, I know that Aegon's at 70, and that's how you do it. But I have tried to do this, and I have just never once ever hit the 50 gold mark and been above like 26 health. It feels like my gosh, it feels like every single game he's able to accomplish this sort of stuff and be at the same mark of health total.
I mean, that's what makes it really impressive to watch these pros, right? Because you can kind of ride that edge where that'll be a board, I would imagine, if we saw it that, as we saw it there, where in a lot of other rounds, clearly we could tell that it was losing by a small amount. And so that relies on just very good positioning, very good knowledge of, what champion is better than another champion in a given round, what trade is worth it, what trade is not worth it. And if you can kind of walk that tightrope, like Aegon is pretty good at doing, you can build that Econ, or that Econ rather. Aegon and Econ together is Econ, but musical artist. But then you can also get the situation where you don't have to hemorrhage that much HP for it either.
Yeah. Now today hasn't been the most exciting day for Aegon, but we'll address that later when we come to Aegon's board. For Pocky right now, I'm really curious about how much the items actually influence the direction this is going to go right now. Pocky's just had a smile on his face this entire time. It seems like one of these devious smiles that's taking place where he has some sort of unique plan in mind that's going to completely change the world. But we're going to find out. Finds 3 items off of Krugs as well. And that's a 7th Poppy that gets collected. And it does not look like Pocky's going up. And that's a 2nd Titan's Resolve. And that tells me, DoA, that this is an Aatrox 3-star target.
I think you may be right. And I mean, 3-150 gold, you can start slow rolling. That's not a bad position to go for it. So can't wait to check back in with that later. Meanwhile, Rue loves you. Doing a little bit of scouting to try to find a direction possibly to go. For now, pretty decent items on the Olaf. So
Locket.
you've got a Jax option. Locket is an interesting slam. You don't see as many of those. But with all those 1-stars, I guess you're just going to try to sustain as much as possible right now.
Yeah, it's 2nd chain. You have an option for a Bramble, but you do need to kill that Rod at some point. True. And the Rod's really not looking like it's providing you anything else. And I think that for Rue here, again, this is just another spot where the game has provided you with a fairly mediocre set of decisions to make, and that you've made a very strong one. Like, I wasn't looking at Locket at all in that position. And when I saw it, and you mentioned it's a bunch of 1-star units here, like, you got to keep these units alive. You don't want to just take big hits by losing the round. Locket can certainly help that happen, and I think it very much did in that round. I think that was a Locket diff.
Yeah, I like it a lot, for sure. Now, up to level 6, why not put in another cannon, get a little bit more crowd control going, still maintain that very strong 3 skirmisher, 3 sentinel synergy combination. A little bit of scouting. And, when you've got a cannon on both sides, too, a lot of times you're just going to hit both sides. And so the crowd control should be thorough if the cannon casts.
I just like the symmetry that's here. That's why I would have put a cannon on each side.
Sure. Simple geometry.
Aegon sitting on 5 with 40 gold. A lot of pairs, and looks like going for... is Aegon going Chug Jug here? That's 7 Kazakhs?
I mean, it's a lot of brawlers, too. I would love to see it. He has played it one time in this tournament. It was the last game he played on week 2. Might be the last game he plays here on week 3.
It seems like it's possible. This is an interesting lobby that's taken place.
It really is. I cannot recommend Chug Jug, but if anyone can make it work, it's going to be Aegon. I don't think that's going to be what we're going to see, but
Poppy 3 from Pokygom?
Well,
yeah.
The thing is, here's the thing, is that if Pokygom is going for those 1-star rerolls, that does free up Aegon the opportunity to find some 3-star 1 cost of his own, too.
It's a true story. And I'm very curious how much that has potentially influenced the decision here on Aegon's side. Right now, you're not expecting wins. You're hoping that this Kazakhs could just pick off some units and that you don't take big hits. You want to bleed slower so it gives you more time to find all this, and at the same time, you kind of slowly wield your way into it. And heck, when Spencer's re-rolling for stuff as well, like, look at all the stuff Spencer's re-rolling for here. Like, my gosh, what has happened? Are they just coordinating for 1-star re-rolls?
This is just a lobby where everyone has agreed to re-roll at 1 and 2 cost, apparently. I'm all for it. Let's see it. Because, it looks like Spencer, I mean... It's a little bit late to go for that Vayne 3, but, he's got a lot of poppies, I don't know. I feel like we're going to see the transition, but It's funny to see the attempt anyway.
Econ breaks the streak there with a win. So what's the item? Looking at chain.
The item
on
is
a Nunu. The item is Nunu. I think you're right, honestly.
Is that a Nunu too? I think
that's a Nunu too. Yeah, I think you're right. The item's Nunu.
Does he have an item remover? I didn't see that because like you get the weird thing where there's like a belt on one, and then well, you can make a trap claw. Well, no, yeah, you can make a trap claw. You can also make a cloak or a shroud rather out of this. I mean, for now, you'll just take the brawlers too.
Wow, just straight up, I think that Nunu was the item. I think that's spot on.
Yep. Nunu 2 is a pretty big hit at this point. With 4 brawler, that's a lot of HP. That's over 2,000 HP for the Nunu, I'm pretty sure.
Econ, I think in this role here was looking for the idea of hitting the Vel'Koz right away. And
how will you?
Wow, Nunu finds its way out. It's because of going for the 4 Dawnbringer aspect as well. So Nunu taking an exit enables the Sunfire Cape as well. That could have been the hesitation. They wanted the chain, but they didn't want to combine the Nunu and have to move it in some way. You know, when you only have 5 units in play, the Sunfire Cape feels like a much more important asset than when you're just kind of naturally progressing the board. And you go, okay, well, Nunu 2's looking pretty good here.
Sure.
In this spot, Econ takes a hit, goes to 40 exactly. I always feel like every single time Econ does one of these things, it's a very deliberate notion that's been taken, and that Econ knew that they would go to exactly 40 in this spot.
I mean, the issue here as well, there's a lot of decisions to make in this round too, but the issue here as well is that he didn't have a lot of damage. I think that prompted some of the change. All right, good amount of gold. What's the item going to be? Frozen Heart of Gold is tempting. Death Cap, I think you got to start thinking about damage a little bit. He knows he has the opportunity for the Last Whisper or the Runins, so what goes well with that? Maybe you start looking at, I think you're looking at Assassins here, because yeah, that could be great on the Diana later. There's a Nocturne. Rolls past it, so never mind.
And Nidalee gets found. What on earth can you sell in a spot like this? There's the Kha'Zix. Nidalee gets passed.
So it's gonna be the, I would imagine, the Pike holding the Frozen Heart for now, or you can just toss on the front line.
Gragas.
Okay, I've seen it both ways. You're gonna obviously hit the front line a lot with this. If you put on the Pike, then you get the whole back line, slows down the damage dealers a bit. It's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen the other, as far as like what you prefer.
Look at this, Jax just cranking with that Radiance.
It's a great item.
My gosh, it's such a big difference from the 1 cell to the 2 cell range.
Yeah. Radiant Gunblade, I think, is one of the. If I haven't done my Radiant item tier list yet, Admirable, but Radiant Gunblade would be right up there, S or A for me.
Went over to Rated side of the board here, and this is a pretty strong looking position from Rated side. And with this many players re-rolling as well, you're kind of performing a similar re-roll circumstance. The difference is your board's, scales up in power pretty quickly to fight against this. And so I don't think it's A, much of a surprise to see this board being so strong with just what we're seeing in play. But B, I feel like this board's going to perform very strong because you're looking for a 3-cost 3-star, and so you're just pretty darn close to where the 1-cost re-rollers are going. You're right up there with them in terms of power level. You're rolling, fairly reasonably often to get to these points as well. Like for Raditz, I feel like this is a great spot to be in. Spencer finds a 3-star Poppy. Aegon finds another Aegon. Spencer going to find a 3-star Leona as well. Like this lobby is popping off.
Oh boy, here we go. The hits are starting to begin as we see the players engaging in their 4-1 roll downs. This is where some players have to send it. I'm looking at Radit's board right now, and I'm like, the Deathblade is good, but the Bloodthirster is so strong on the Riven, I'm a little bit surprised he hasn't slammed it. I think he's just holding out for one more round until that Armory to just make sure he's got kind of the best decision.
Yeah, I think that with the Hand of Justice there, that's the delay as well. I wouldn't mind seeing a Bloodthirster on this, but it could be 100%. A bit more powerful. At 85 health, I think it's worth it to make those kinds of sacrifices and take those kinds of risks. Goes into first place after this as Precedent finds a 5-win streak as well. Aegon finds a win, Spencer finds a win, and those are the players who were in the most trouble and were re-rolling the most at 1. So 2 very powerful comps, I think, were just born in that bottom 4.
Yep. And you notice too, Raditz and Broccoli occupy 2 out of the top 3 spots again here. They need to have another strong finish if they want to have any chance, like we talked about earlier. Meanwhile, looking at Soju trying to power up his Abomination with a Bramble Vest Slam on the Callista. has a pretty strong Zyra, but you're gonna be really hoping that the Heimerdinger shows up at some point soon.
Yeah, this is a very, again,
Oh
a very
my
common
God.
Soju position is the looking at the level. You know,
Did you see
very.
what I just saw.
I think I did. I wasn't
Egon
gonna.
Is the jug has been chugged.
No,
Gragas
goodness.
3 has been hit. It happened. Will Aegon be able to win a round though? That's the next question.
Well, he won the previous round. That was the
Sure.
thing. Those two comps at the bottom were born.
Will he be able to win another round though? That's always a question with Chug Jug. Can you win more than one round?
The more the casters question it, the more rounds they'll win.
I mean, that's been the trend today for sure. Like the more I like talk negatively about this composition, the better it'll do.
So here we go. Is this enough sustain for the two of these to make it through this? They find themselves in the
Oh,
Zyra, and that
that's
Zyra
good.
takes some big hits right away. Soju gonna take a very soft loss. If you're gonna take losses, those are the ones you want to see. Pocky fallen. Aegon picked up a second win. And so finding a better front line here for Soju. You notice that they have exited the Draconic spot at this point. It is support as the Draven in the bottom left is holding the Radiant Archangels. I definitely didn't notice that last round.
Oh my gosh. It is the light snack. It is a Dawnbringer Nunu, but can he hit the Nunu 3? That's the question for press event. He actually is going towards it.
Wow.
I mean, because the reason why this is so strong is because you get all that healing from Dawnbringer. Nunu eats people based on if he has more HP than them or not, and so getting that healing in the middle of combat ensures more effectively instant kills from your Nunu.
Oh my gosh, this board from Spencer is terrifying. If you are going for fast 8 here,
Oh man.
that's a huge hit that Soju has taken now, and you can kind of see the smile on that face. That smile is like a really kind of face when I see it, and so I think Soju here, that the amount of time that's been given in order to get to 8 and find the units you want has very much been limited after a 13 damage hit on 4-3.
It's a smile that hides the sorrow behind it for sure.
He always wears his expressions on his face.
Yeah, exactly.
As DoA said earlier.
Thanks for bringing that up again. Yep. Yep. Well, I'm waiting. I'm waiting to see if the Heimerdinger shows up, right? Because if it doesn't show up soon, or the Teemo, I guess. If they don't show up soon, Soju is pretty dead.
Yeah, or 2 stars. I mean, I'll accept 2 stars at this point.
Sure.
I just don't want to get 8 really. So the
Sure.
Radiance is showing up here, and I feel like this is a gotta go situation, and so does Soju.
You gotta send it. Hey, there he is.
That's one big find, but you still need a front line to give this Heimer time. Passes up the Teemo, don't have the HP for it at the moment.
Nope.
Don't disagree. Vel'Koz getting picked up as a just in case, and Lulu gets found as well. So there goes the Draven. What's going in next? It's not the Lulu apparently.
All right, 2 Revenant. Props to Soju for doing that pretty smoothly. I gotta say. Got this positioning in at the end.
Where do these items go? Heimer gets shredded by this 2-star Vel'Koz on Broccoli's side.
Yeah. You got 1 cast off, but that's not gonna really get a lot accomplished.
It's another pretty big hit that Soju's taken here. Down to 24. I'm worried.
Gotta use some of these items too. It's do or die. I'm watching to see if all of Aegon's rounds are going to be really long. Oh, see, he does lose that one. Loses it to Pakigam, it looks like. Checking out Broccoli's board. In the meantime, he just got that win the last round. 4 Spellweaver, 4 Abomination on board. Spellweaver Fiddlesticks is one of the best holders of that spatula item. Finds another Abomination, which is great. That Ivern is going to make a big difference in terms of keeping that front line healthy.
Yeah, I mean, this honestly, like finding the way that this board has panned out, this is looking fantastic from Broccoli's side. You know, the problem really is that your front line is just all 1-star stuff, so it's a little bit tough to feel comfortable, I'd say, in a situation like this. But with 4 Spellweaver and the Vel'Koz holding the Radiant Hodge as well, like this unit cranks a ton of damage. And it's very difficult to kill from like that corner-to-corner battle that often takes place in these caster comps. So there's the Fiddle cast, and it weakens the whole board, and then there's the Vel'Koz, and it sweeps away the rest of this. That's the power of that 4 Spellweaver before players get their teams equipped and can tech in Mystics against you. This team shreds until that moment happens.
That's right. Aegon takes another loss. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Chug Jug.
He's going to be chugging a lot earlier than Dawn if this keeps happening. My goodness.
Yep. Chug Jug is activated long as we waited. Aegon debated. Ooh, perhaps. As we look and see as well, 8875, I believe, near the top, if not top of the standings right now. Precedent doing well in this lobby, but Soju way down at the bottom too. And remember, this is the last game. This is your last chance to score points before the top 4 teams are decided after the games tomorrow for these groups of teams. So it is do or die. Everybody fighting their hearts out right now. I don't know if that's really a phrase, but it doesn't matter. I'm a caster. I can invent phrases.
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of what the job is, right? Sometimes you got to make up one-liners. I do that all the time. When luck shuts the door, you got to open up the window.
That's right. There you go. Pike
Spencer.
3 for Aegon. Maybe that was the key. Maybe that is the key to unlocking first place.
It's a much longer stun. I know that part because I have built a lot of Pike 3s. And so
Really?
Yeah, I've built a lot of Pike 3s. I was forcing it right when the first Tristana nerf happened.
Interesting.
And I will say for Spencer here, the one thing that's missing is a third item on this vein at the moment. There is a Zeke's to kind of supplement that for the time being. But for right now, if that vein can't find a third item, it means your damage is a lot slower. And so that Vel'Koz corner to corner is terrifying to pay attention to. The Thresh pulling off that stun and putting that Vel'Koz in such a bad spot, though. That vein is shredding the rest of this board.
Yeah, the vein 3 build is definitely back. It's not something you see super often, but if you do find a lot of veins and you find the proper items, you can see it certainly does well, especially when you add on those other strong frontliners that come through. Aegon is dead! Oh no! The Jug.
Look at this Aatrox getting picked up by the Viego. That's how you beat the Aatrox, is quite literally getting a Viego to attach to it while you have some damage going.
True. All right,
Interesting on the Hex. How does the Hex Tech work with the Silver Bolts?
I think... Do you heal from true damage? Man, I have... The thing is, I haven't built Hex Tech in so long, I can't even remember. That's embarrassing. But I actually can't remember if it's useful or not.
So,
certainly not
instance,
useful enough for Spencer to pick it up anyway.
On Yasuo, you get the heal from it. I'm just curious if it's beneficial from this, the perspective of the vein. You get a little bit of extra damage because of the sword. You get a little bit of extra damage on your bolts because of the rod. And you get the healing aspect if your true bolts benefit from that, but I'm just not actually sure they do. 3-star. How many 3-stars are in this lobby? My gosh, this is like the most mediocre restaurant reviews I've ever seen on one of those apps that you review restaurants on.
Right, ultimate median. Here's the problem though, is that the Vel'Koz does not hit the vein. The Volibear does though, so the Vel'Koz is going to get another chance to shoot. No, great Thresh hook, Sniper Thresh. Prevents that cast from hitting the vein again. Dude, I can't believe. All right, finally Leona Mario stomps her own vein, unfortunately. But maybe the Leona with the Bramble Vest is enough to win this.
It's going up against the Nunu, though.
Yeah, the Radiant Redemption is going to maybe keep the HP high enough.
My goodness.
That Dragon's Claw, too. Look at the damage.
What? Can Daisy get it done?
Daisy. Can you do it?
4 seconds until a tie!
The cast. Oh, it's close. No, it's a tie. I think. Yep, the damage comes through. It was against a ghost anyway, so it doesn't matter. Spencer takes damage. Did not get what he wanted to get done with that Leona. It was close, though. I mean, it wasn't a lot of damage, right?
Gosh.
So,
what an improvement to Dragon's Claw.
Oh, no, wait. Spencer didn't even lose his, he didn't lose his win streak. So I guess if it's Daisy, you just don't take damage. You don't see that situation very often. Interesting.
What is this board?
This is a weird game. This is a weird game, Admirable, all right?
This somehow is 6 redeemed, all right? When I glance at this board, it looks like there's 2 redeemed units in play with a spatula. And I guess like when I take a second account for it, it makes sense that there's 6 redeemed. It just doesn't feel that way.
You know, a lot of times, too, when you go for this, like, 1-star reroll, you're not going 6 redeemed. You're getting the 3-star Callista a lot of times. You're building this differently.
Nunu. The Nunu's 3-starred.
He basically doesn't have any lines in his health.
Oh my gosh, and he eats the Aatrox!
You know, I don't even think the Dawnbringer's been activated yet on this Nunu. He's scary.
What on earth?
He's gonna get tossed around, though. Oh! What? Look at that damage! What, 15,000, 16,000 damage, Syndra?
I feel like everything I know about TFT is untrue.
I have never seen a game exactly like this in this in set 5.5 yet. This is an absolutely bonkers game too. At the end of the day with.
Zephyr feels like an extremely powerful item right now.
Oh yeah. I mean, but to be fair, Dragonclaw definitely does too.
Yeah, more Warmogs as well. If your units have enough HP, maybe the Nunu doesn't consume them instantaneously.
Dude, you're never going to have more HP than that Nunu. With those items. No, give it up. It's not happening.
It's not possible.
I don't think it's happening. Maybe the Leona does. Maybe that Leona 3 does, but I don't think anything else does. Yeah, Declaw on the... I feel like... Yeah, alright. Yeah, okay. You can put it on the Poppy. I would be okay with this on the Leona as well. But it is a redeemed Poppy, so...
This Poppy has grind out more dungeons in those repetitive dungeon games than I have ever seen in my entire life. I've never seen a Poppy this equipped.
Really? Don't you remember Candyland?
No, yeah, I guess I do remember that one. Now that you mention it.
Not since Candyland, maybe. That
Raidit's here. Can the Lucian get it done? I will say Giant Slayer's looking fantastic in this lobby.
It is pretty useful. That combined with the Last Whisper, of course, but
that
my
gosh,
is so massive.
Syndra just mutilates the back line.
Just dunking people. Pokygum is just like loving life right now too. You don't get to like win games or place well with a comp like this very often. This is hilarious. Like the prophecy of Syndra carry is not fulfilled, but it's as close as it's ever been.
Soju going out in 7th place in this one.
Yeah.
Wow. Older found some Radiant items.
So this is actually a big deal because there's a fairly high chance that both Soju and Prestivent might exit in bot 4, which in the end of the day might make the difference between making the top 4 after the points are calculated tomorrow.
It's not wrong about that. I mean, that's a super excellent point to make, is that they came into today with the point lead. They had lost the point lead for a game. They got it back going into game 4 here, but Soju finishing 7th and Prestivent being on the verge of potentially a 6th or just a bottom 4 in general is making this a little bit tougher here. So when you look at Raidit's side of the board here and you're seeing this fight, this Rel right now is securing a lot of frontline potential, but the Viego is starting to strip that away, and this Jax has made it to the back line. So if this Jax finds its way over to this Lucian, the Lucian's going to get shot down, and that's a loss here for Raidit's. So now for Prestivent's side, that's the last thing they wanted to see. However, Prestivent does get a win here. I do feel like the Nunu 3 is looking really, really strong in this particular lobby. Raidit's taking a big hit, so that's good news for Prestivent. Rude wins their round, sitting at 3 health. This is about as tight as you're going to get right now, and Soju and Prestivent, they have to just be hoping at the very, very most that Prestivent can get at least one more place out of this, because 2 bottom 4s would just be the worst for their finish today. And right now, their points sitting at 127. They are the number 1 team at the moment, but it can possibly fall out of that spot if the top 4 teams tomorrow just crank out strong finishes the whole day.
Yeah, totally true. Especially if the lobbies tomorrow end up one-sided, you know, as far as what teams are gaining points and what teams are not gaining very many points. Giant Slayer against this lobby is probably a pretty good pickup if you can find someone to put it on. I guess it goes on the Jax. If I were Raidit's, it's probably where I'd put it. Maybe the Akshan, probably the Jax.
Here comes some rolls.
Yeah, that said, all right. So that's going to be a nice Sentinel addition. You don't really need the Akshan in there. What's he looking for? More Lucians?
Oh,
here we go again.
Yeah, that's the direction to go. I'm just curious how much time you have. The lobby is so packed at the moment.
I mean, I don't know if there's time to put together the second Lucian 3 of the day for Raidit's or not.
I will say that this does feel like pretty strong recognition from Raidit's side, at least. It's just no one's buying Lucian, so this is a realistic, 4-cost unit that you can 3-star.
Oh, Olaf hit by the Zephyr, perfect.
That's that Nunu is just so scary.
I know. Can anyone do
that? Nunu. Look at the damage the Lucian is cranking.
Dude, the Lucian plus the Jax, that is the double Giant Slayer just destroyed that Nunu.
Holy smokes,
that's the end. That's the end of Prestivent. He's dead. Out in 5th, it looks like.
And Pokygom is nowhere close to taking a loss here. So that's a 5th for Prestivent, a 6th for We Loves You. Pokygom's going to get a win here. Spencer is going to take a hit. Well, it could be a tie, I guess. It's a possibility, but it's not happening. Spencer takes 21 damage.
Whew. Wow. All right, we got our top 4, though. And this is a massive result again for Broccoli and Raidit's. Remember, they need a lot of points right now if they want to have a chance. But getting a first and second finish is, for the second time today, I believe, is the best chance they could possibly give themselves. So whether you make it tomorrow or not, I mean, at least you can go out knowing you did your very best, right? But you got to take out Spencer and Pakigam.
I believe with that, with this top 4 from both of them, that they have now taken the lead over 8875. I believe it, again, caster math, so be wary. But I believe that puts them in first place coming into this one. But right now, the spike for Spencer, Spencer was looking like they were in a fantastic spot. They took a massive hit in the previous one, and if they don't win this fight, they are now out in 4th place from what was looking like a fantastic spot. The Lucian gets hooked, but the Jax is still running free. Can the Vayne get this done? Vayne gets stunned, but it's cranking out some damage. Gets stunned again in this spot, and is now open to the Lucian damage, which looks like a joke.
Look at the healing from the Hand of Justice.
My
Lucian,
gosh.
like, Vayne just took a full-on Lucian ultimate to the face and just healed through it. It's kind of smiling smugly there. He's like, yeah, well, at least I'm strong against other boards. But meanwhile, let's jump on board with Pakigam. And as he does a bit of scouting here, this insane 6 redeemed board. Candyland's back with the Poppy 3 with all the items. You love to see it.
I'm curious how just like it's tough to really know how much the position is manipulating these fights as well, because I just don't think I've ever seen a top 4 built this way. Like, you do see the 1 cost rerolls make it in the top 4 and sometimes win lobbies. You rarely see a lot of them make it to top 4.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting lobby. It's just one of those things where somebody decides to start rolling for 1 stars, and there's this like chain reaction where it's like, all right, well, we're all re-rolling now. And this is the result, The
Syndra is disgusting.
Yep.
Broccoli getting knocked out. Raditz looking like that they're on the verge as well. It's happening even if this goes to a tie. Raditz has no chance unless this somehow horse just becomes the dread steed and stomps everything.
Well, all right, so that's big. Pakigam clapping there, but Broccoli and Raditz exiting in 3rd and 4th. They're going to miss out on some points there. Still a good result for them, but maybe not enough to make it through. We'll have to, again, wait until all the points from the other matches are calculated tomorrow. But it's going to be, I think tomorrow's going to be a very close finish between a lot of the teams today and whoever performs well tomorrow.
Can Pocky even improve the board at this point? Like, it feels like the gold is actually useless.
I mean, like, Lux 3. I mean, I think a Garen...
You need 18 gold for Lux 3.
Like, if I got a Garen 2, I would 100% transfer all the Poppy items onto a Garen. For sure. Like, that would be
What
that
is this position that's taking place? The Vayne is being moved to the center of the board.
Yeah, I gotta protect the Vayne. You gotta protect the Vayne, man. Although this does mean that the Teemo should be able to have a pretty high chance of hitting that Vayne and slowing the attack speed.
Syndra is gripping a QSS Garen at the moment, so it is not having an impact on the board to start this game. The Aatrox moving to the center, and it's going to be finding itself towards the back line, but the Leona steps in the way and tries to protect this Vayne. How long can this Vayne be protected as the Syndra has now been opened up, and Spencer's board looks like it's crumbling apart at this point. Teemo, wow, that's a big hit from the Syndra.
All right, I thought this Teemo was a double agent for a second because he took forever to actually hit the Vayne with the bombs. But it looks like it's going to be enough in the end, just barely. That Vayne got a lot of time, but that'll be it. Spencer out. Pakigam gets the win with one of the most ridiculous boards I've seen in a long time. But Admirable, that's been the theme of the day. Like, we saw Kale 2 win. We saw this board win. We saw Lucian 3 win. Like, I don't know what's going on. Everything I know about TFT is just not applicable anymore. Who knows what the meta is at this point?
It's
whatever you make it to be.
It's the Bizarro meta today.
My
goodness.
It really is.
What a crazy set of games that we have seen, and just what a delightful way to see these games end as well. Just nothing at all being at a point to prediction, quite literally, except the Nunu that you and I had very, very egregiously speculated on based on one early item that was seen in this one. Like, very unusual spots, but my goodness, the team's kind of providing some consistent performances though. That to me seems like the one thing that went in line with in terms of expectation.
Yeah, I mean, and we knew the teams needed to. We had some teams that really needed to step up. We're going to see the points in just a moment, as I would imagine Lobby A is probably finishing up right now if it hasn't already finished. And we'll see what the totals are for the end of the day. I'm going to stand by my prediction that, like, low to mid 30s are going to be where teams are going to need to be at to make it to the final lobby, to make it to that top 4 team mark. Meanwhile, we did have the Neanderthals winning the first place via Pokygom's redeemed comp. Rue, I believe, got 6th in that one overall. That's going to only bring them to 5th place in the total placements, and we know that's probably not going to be good enough. Either way, fun finish for Pokygom. Spicy Appies, wow, after a rough start to the day, finally gets a first here. GV8 gets a 4th, so good finish for them, but probably going to need a little bit more to take that top 4. Either way, I just want to see the total points. $200 in pool play earnings, not bad for People Riot, GV8, and Spicy Appies. Again, if anything, I think Spicy Appies this tournament has solidified himself as a player to watch. Definitely recommend to stream if you want to learn. And there we go. Sold Cat for Econ. 136 points. I think that may be enough. But everyone below that, everyone below 130, I would be worried for.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier, and I think that's just, again, an excellent point to be making here. You said low 130s. And so for 8875 and Soul Cat for Econ, 136 and 133 on the points. That is that 130s mark that you were talking about. And then you look at the next 2 teams who are sitting in the top 4, People Riot and Aegon GG, 123 and 120 points. If that same model is followed tomorrow, what that means is you would have 2 more teams in the 130s, and that would cut off that 123 mark. And so I think that is such an excellent point that you made. It's looking like almost exactly that's going to be the case. However, I think that from what we've seen today, what we just know is that tomorrow, nothing is going to be what you expect it to be necessarily. Everything is up for grabs.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I will say, I think out of the possible groups of players that we could have in this tournament, today we did have a lot of players concentrated together that are willing to go for some of those more out there strategies. Whereas you look at tomorrow's group of players, I wonder if we're going to see a little bit more standard play according to the meta right now. But I think today is just another great example of the fact that there's so much that works right now in TFT if you can identify it and capitalize on it. The game's just in a great state competitively right now. It's in one of the best states it's ever been, I think, honestly. And especially with Tristana reroll out of the way, I don't think we saw a single one of those today. Goodbye. I think it's fine if it's strong. It was too strong. I'm glad it got nerfed. I think it opened things up even more, and today was a good example of that.
Yeah, I've even seen that composition still succeed at times. Just
it still can.
Depending,
it's not
on
bad.
Yeah, it's just how quickly can you find it? Because at some point it hits its peak and you can get outscaled. I think it's a normal point of reference for pretty much any composition you can build in TFT. I think really that's what today demonstrated, though, is that the timing is everything on this one. You have to be able to recognize what the rest of the lobby is doing, what the game has offered you so far, and what your strongest opportunity actually is. And at times, that's just going to be reroll. These players, they found a lot of these copies of these 1-star units early on, and then they committed. And I think that's part of one of the ways that you go into those reroll positions is you have some items that lean towards it, and you have a spot where it's a good opening for it. That's really everything, is learning how to capitalize on as many opportunities as you can, and then capitalizing on the right one when you get into the competitive scenario.
That's right. So it sounds like we're wrapping things up a little bit right now, but don't be fooled. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have an interview with Broccoli and Raditz. I can't wait to talk to them about the day. It was crazy, so do not go anywhere. Quick break, and then we'll be back with the interview and our final thoughts here on Giant Slayer series presented by Wisdom. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Giant Slayer series presented by Wisdom. I am DoA. With me is ThatsAdmirable. And with us as well are Raditz and Broccoli, the two members of Sold Cat
Hello.
for Econ. So my question is, was it worth it? Was it worth it? Like, was the loss of the cat? I mean, it seemed like it paid off today.
Yeah.
At least.
We had some
insane gold
briefing,
openers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had some insane gold openers, so I think the Econ definitely came in clutch today.
Yeah, and I got Lucian
think
3
we're-
off it, so.
True, yeah.
True. You almost had Lucian 3 twice.
Yeah. I
So what-
actually my stream
go
yesterday,
ahead.
I wanted to test how many games I could hit Lucian 3 in a row, and I actually hit it 3 games in a row. So I was like, all right, I'm pulling it out this game. And in
It
this,
does seem like he's
tournament.
fallen off a little bit in terms of popularity, so he's ripe for the picking, as it were. But
Yeah,
did you
we-
really expect to be able to do that today, though?
When you if you hit Lucian 2 and 7, you just you spike so hard, and if no one's playing it, you could econ up to 50 gold level 8, and then just start slow rolling. And I actually said it in the game I hit Lucian 3. Preston was planning on playing Lucian, but he pivoted. I was like, oh, if he sells this Lucian, he's making a mistake. And then he sold it, and then it ended up hitting Lucian 3 later.
Yeah, and the way you hit it as well, where you just natural rolled into it, the last like the perfect amount of gold, you just hit it.
Yeah, my last possible roll, I hit Lucian 3.
Yeah, well, it worked. Admirable, what question you got?
Yeah, I was gonna ask what influenced the Lucian 3 attempt. You had mentioned though that you were trying to see how many days in a row you could hit it. What kind of tipped you off to the idea that this was a real thing that could be done and that this was actually going to influence your impact on the lobby? So I want to ask one to Raditz and then Broccoli afterwards for you to just think what could have possibly influenced him if Raditz lies as the answer to this question.
Okay, so I go first?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was actually bored on the ladder. I was like, I don't feel like playing Aphelios or Vel'Koz again. So I was like, I'm going to try Lucian. And I asked Ramblin in my chat. I was like, what items do you like? And he's like, oh, I really like IE Jewel Gauntlet. And I was like, all right, I'm going to try that out. And I tried it out, and it was super good. And then I realized no one plays Lucian, so I was like, I'll just go for Lucian 3 every game. And I gained some LP that way.
Yeah, I've been checking the stream. I've been checking the stream every now and then. He's playing for fun comps, Chug Jug, Callisto Reroll. So makes sense to go for Lucian 3.
Telling the truth.
It's inspirational. So speaking of inspirational, you both gained exactly the same points today. You each gained 25 points for a total of 50. You started the day at 86. You very middle of the pack. You ended the day at the top of the standings at 136. So I guess my question is, did you have any sort of strong team plan coming into the day? Did you have a real strategy, or was it more free flowing? What was the plan, Broccoli? Why don't you start us off?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So
Raditz.
Ray was gonna play an AD comp. I was gonna play AP, probably Vel'Koz every game, just hard econ, go for
Okay.
top 2 finish, right? It's kind of first or eighth, but you just go how it is, right? And I don't know. I guess we didn't really have a concrete plan. We didn't even talk very much. I feel like in the past week we talked today,
Yeah.
and things
Wow,
kind of just
alright.
fell into place,
Yeah, our strat was
Sure.
you start Rod, I start Sword, I play AD, you play AP. That was it.
We talked for 10 minutes, and before
They
this.
say absence makes the heart grow fonder,
I mean,
right? So maybe that time
we're-
apart just
we're good friends, right? But we haven't chatted about the game, right? Because
Yeah.
yeah,
We usually talk about anime or something.
yeah.
Do you think anything from anime you're watching right now inspired you today?
I'm
if
not
so,
too sure
what?
about that one.
No.
I mean, it's just the common anime goals of trying to fulfill your dreams. I wanted to hit that Lucian 3 and I did it, so.
That
That's
1-2
it,
was
go.
definitely an anime moment right there. We were very happy.
Yeah.
The round before,
Wow.
I actually DC'd. So yeah, it was definitely.
Also,
a
I don't know if
really
you
good
guys
moment.
noticed,
really?
but in another game, Broccoli ended up hitting Timo 2-on-7.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
that
yeah.
was pretty.
Oh,
That was nice.
yeah, I did notice that actually. That's wild. Wow. It seemed like a bizarre adventure today though, to follow the anime theme here, and especially in that last game, it was very bizarre. There were lots of 1 and 2 cost reroll going on. like a lot of builds people might say are a little bit more memey in air quotes, but what's the legitimacy of that kind of thing going through it? Like what of those builds when you look at like Chug Jug, like you know, Aatrox, Callista reroll, that kind of thing? Like what actually feels viable to the two of you out of those?
You wanna go away?
You want to go first? Okay.
Alright, I'll go first. You go first.
I actually
You go first.
I actually think Syndra 3 is super good. Every time I see it, it just blows my mind. I don't know why more people don't play it, but yeah, I think Syndra 3
I've been
is
saying
just
this in
beyond broken.
Set 5 beta. I'm the Syndra
confirm.
prophet, man. I haven't been able to figure out how to make it work because I'm not a pro gamer, but I'm glad you're finally bringing the light to everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually played 2 or 3 Syndra 3 games at like the early part of the set when you could just reroll anything because nobody knew what was going on. And it felt really good then. And yeah, I think the Vayne reroll is definitely playable. And it definitely is really good to some comps, but it doesn't seem like... I haven't seen that much success come from it, but whenever they hit, they just beat boards sometimes that you don't expect them to beat. Especially that setup that Spencer had with the Woody stacked Leona. It was really hard to get through
that was really good. Yeah. Admirable, any last quick follow-up questions?
Yeah, this one's just going to be like a pretty serious standard one. Talk to me about the difference between playing in a solo aspect and playing as a team. Like, even though you may not have felt the influence between the two of you, given how you mentioned communication, did you feel like there was any influence coming from other teams as well on top of that?
We definitely like positioned for each other, talked about items, tried to keep streaks. There's lots of like asking for other opinions, like a second opinion. I feel like we had a lot because especially when we're playing stuff that we don't know, it's really hard.
I think we talk to each other about our rating items every time. So like, I would be like, oh, I got Frozen Heart Warmogs. What would you take here? And you'd be like, oh, I have IE Jewel Gauntlet. What are you taking? And then we'd always ask each other before we took our rating item almost every single game.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the team synergy that gets you those 50 points. All right, we're going to let you go. Before we do, any last shout-outs you want to make or anything like that? We'll start with you, Raditz.
Yeah, I always want to give a shout-out to Soju for being so free and allowing us to get first today. So, shout-out Soju, shout-out Preston.
Yeah.
Shout-out Jen, shout-out my friend Cole who's watching. Also, shout-out Ray. The past 2 days, I bought for it like every single game, and Ray just hard carried me. So he basically just kept us in it for this day. Like him popping off in those past 2 days.
And then Broccoli popped off today.
Yeah.
True. That sounds like a team effort to me. All right. Well, congratulations again on the day, Broccoli and Raid. It's points leaders and probably one of the biggest points days we've seen so far in the tournament. It was really, really impressive. So congrats on being top of the standings. Hope you guys survive to the final lobby. We'll see how tomorrow's games go, but for now, we will let you guys go. Hopefully see you next week. Thanks for stopping by.
Bye.
All right, there you go, Admirable. Two upstanding young TFT pro gamers telling us how it's done, and really, again, putting on a clinic. Like, I want to say it was very few teams have reached the 50-point threshold. Megafurts did it in week 1. Trying to remember if anyone did it in week 2, but week 3 definitely raided some Broccoli. Sold Cap for Econ. Must have been a valuable cat. Worked out, but wow, that's the day. What a day, huh?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that just nothing at all really went as expected, other than like maybe a couple of units that we predicted were going to be targeted as 3-star units, and then successfully found themselves that way there. Just nothing today went as I would have ever expected to happen in terms of TFT lobby wins. Unreal.
It was great. Let's take a look at the schedule because, again, remember, we're not done yet for the week. That's right. Well, you and I are done, Admirable. But Frodan and Bryce, Esports Law, are coming into cast tomorrow. Going to be a great set of games. And remember, it is the final set of games before the finals next week. So the last chance for these teams to earn some points. It's going to be awesome. Do not miss it. And then, of course, next week is going to be the final showdown between our last 4 teams. But that is it for the day. Admirable, any shout-outs you want to make before we close out? Shout-outs, final thoughts? The floor is yours.
I just want to give a thanks to everyone who's been showing support to me for the last week, and it's just been helping me out in general as I've come into the TFT community. It's been very welcoming. It's heartwarming how great this community has been. TFT has struck a magical chord in my heart with how much I love this game. It makes me feel like I'm 12 years old playing Magic for the first time again. And a big thanks to you, Doa. I was very sick and tired of carrying Bryce in the hosting role, and now I'm happy that someone is hard carrying me in the hosting role instead. It's one of the hardest jobs I've ever had, and I can't believe you make it look so easy.
Nah, you're too kind. It's been a ton of fun casting with you too. People don't know we casted like Hearthstone together like years and years and years ago. I remember like being at an event in New York where I think we were casting together, and I announced someone was going to BlizzCon like one game too early. So I've made I've definitely made my mess ups in big high profile matches as well. Well, that was a fun memory. Anyway, let's move on. Big thanks to Wisdom, of course, the staff over there for producing this show. They always do an amazing job. Thanks to Ball Street for supporting us. Go to fantasytft.com. Play some awesome TFT stock market games. Win some gift cards. Win some little legend eggs. Lots of good stuff over there. Thanks to Riot for supporting the tournament as well and for making TFT. And thanks to you, the viewers at home, for playing the game, for watching, for giving this scene a reason to exist. And that's about it. So until tomorrow, stay safe, play some TFT, and we'll see you next time.